Welcome to Cranky Live Sports Talk, where passion meets action.
Hey sports fans, I am Cranky, and this is the Cranky Live Sports Talk, the podcast where we dive deep into the hottest topics, the biggest games, and the most controversial moments in sports.
Whether it's football, basketball, track and field, cricket, or soccer, we've got you covered with expert analysis, insider interviews, and unfiltered opinions.
Join me as I chat with the biggest names in sports, get exclusive insights and stories you won't hear anywhere else.
Cranky Live Sports Talk is where you can hear the real talk, the hard-hitting questions, and the hottest takes.
So, if you're a true sports fanatic, you don't want to miss out? Subscribe now to the Cranky Live Sports Talk on YouTube and hit that bell icon to never miss an episode.
Cranky Live Sports Talk, where sports come alive. Subscribe today.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hope everyone can hear me. If I have two people this evening, I'll be happy because, we're not talking Reggae Boys football, and I know how my most of my fan base are. When you talk Reggae Boys football, they fill up the chat. If you're not talking Reggae Boys, they're like, I'll pass. Now, I was supposed to be having a guest this evening who is an important person in the Reggae Boys or in the Jamaican Football Federation community, but that didn't materialize. I think they had an emergency meeting. I was trying to reach them all day today. That didn't work out. And then they had an emergency situation which I had to take care of. So they indicated to me, I'm not going to use the word promise because it may not necessarily be a promise. They indicated to me that they will be here tomorrow. And we can do something at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Bless up Tripoli. So hopefully that materializes because I would love to have the conversation. It should be a good conversation. Someone who's high up in the hierarchy. So hopefully that does occur. And it was a good thing. Selecto Pancho. I don't think I've seen Selecta Pancho. Am I pronounce your name right? But part of my whole objective of doing this is a sports channel, but I do venture into other topics periodically. Part of my, I had a conversation today. I was on Oral Tracy's Maverick radio station, Hits FM in Jamaica today, calling in, talking about there's some discussion around whether music influences crime or causes crime and how pertinent or important is music in that whole spectrum. And some people are saying the nature of the music, whether it's rap music or reggae music in today's environment, so reggae be more dancehall and rap music have negative connotation to it, influence the young inappropriately, and is responsible for some of the violence that we encounter in society. And I find that interesting. I was on the sort of opposite view of that. My view is that there's a myriad of things that affect us, and trying to figure out the root cause sometimes is difficult. So, for example, whether it's economic opportunities, whether it's education, whether it's situations around leadership, whether it's availability of guns, especially from the US. I'm going to show you some stats why that is very evident. And also, I indicated whether it's the lack of two-parent household, which is as implication, but also I believe culture is a part of that. And so I'm going to dive into the culture component tonight. And maybe what I'll do is talk about each of those items that I think have significant impact or influences crime and have negative connotation implications for the Black community. This is about Black. So initially, this was going to be about Jamaica, and I expanded that. Now, some will be Jamaica focused, some will be Caribbean focused, some aspect may be global, some may be US. But I think if you look across the world, it's interesting how that works. Now, you see my background, right? I deliberately changed my background to show different components. So whether it's sports, music, religion, I think all these things have impact it's part of our culture and then have implications to how we operate as a society. And my question is the Black culture a positive or a negative, which is is it a blessing or a curse? Many people, and think about Jamaica, 3 million population, cultures adopted across the globe, had significant implications for people, situations. And yet, if you think about Jamaica, it's riddled with crime, has probably the highest murder rate per capita across the globe. And that's why I go with that contradiction, which is this all good or is it bad? So Tripoli said, now that you break down in the areas of entertainment and sport is something definitely worth discussing. Yeah, we're going to talk about that actually. And I'll provide my view as to why I'm so passionate about this. Good evening, BM. Thanks for joining. And as you're coming, everyone, please hit the like button. And those of you who are just football fan and come to talk about football, let's just talk about social issues affect all of us. So sports is just I wouldn't call it a symptom, but it's just one aspect of society. It's not society in its totality. If you talk about money, resources, then yeah, that's societally pervasive and should be discussed. And everybody actually everything actually something tie back to money, because money is a means to an end in some way, shape, or form. Tripoli says, the number of guns movies I watch in my lifetime, how come I'm not influenced by it? Yeah, so that's the point, Tripoli, about the influence of guns or music on you, Tripoli, but it may influence others differently, right? I'm not buying to that notion. I'm going to go into some of the things that I think are much more impactful than music or movies. And you could even say this, why is it so disproportionate for Blacks versus any other race? Caucasians have violent movies. Indians have violent movies or watch violent movies. Why isn't it the same impact to them? So we'll get into some of that. It'll tie back to things which are not necessarily as obvious. Some should be obvious, but we'll talk about some of that. Now, I may not do this topic justice because I did it at the last minute. As I said, I was talking to Maverick today on this program talking about this, and I sort of outlined the things I mentioned before, which I think are more impactful. And I said, you know what? Given that I'm not going to do a sports show this evening because my guest didn't turn up, why not just talk about this because it's something I'm passionate about. Now, culture defines how we live. Now, if we think about what culture entails, and I probably should do that, right? In terms of pull that up. It's important to think about what's the definition of culture as we go into topics like these, right? Because it will help in terms of how we think about this. I'm not sure why this doesn't want to come up. So if you look at the definition of culture, culture is the collection of beliefs, values, traditions. And we've got to think about each of these behaviors that define a group of people or society. It includes both the physical and non-physical aspects of a group, such as their language, their food, their music, and their values. And I think values is something we should underline and put in quotes as we go through this discussion. Culture is also a way of understanding symbols, such as hand gestures and language. Culture is important because it shapes how people interact with each other, how they make sense of the world, and how they experience their daily lives. It's also constantly changing and evolving with new beliefs and practices, replacing older ones. And as you go from one generation to the next, you can see the evolution of the culture. And then we talk about some characteristics of culture. Culture is passed on through generation, learn from people we interact with. It may be regional, it could be local, and there's tangible and intangible aspects of culture, right? So that's the sort of definition of culture. I'm sort of go through it. Now, let me look at some of these comments. Good night, Ted Dexter. Thanks for being here. And thanks for reminding people to hit the like button. Tripoli, I appreciate it. Now, we think about culture, for example. For Black people, culture has been a source of tremendous pride and strength, right? Especially people like Jamaicans, for example. 3 million people, say 6 million globally, which have their music being adopted, their language being adopted, how they operate being adopted. It's a sense of pride. But it also creates challenges and can hold us back. So today when we talk about culture in this discussion, I see, as I mentioned before, both a blessing and a curse, particularly in the realms of sports, entertainment, education, religion, and economic advancement. So just think about those as we go to the whole discussion. And by the way, people, I'm going to make this a call-in program. So I think I want to hear your perspective on this. Am I off base? Do Do you agree with some of my perspective? How do you sort of think about this? So, Black culture is and I use Black, not saying Jamaican or Trinidadian or Vincentian. I'm not saying African. By the way, African is not a country. African is a continent. We always say African as if, and that's how we sort of, dismiss people. We're very dismissive when we say African versus saying Ghana or Nigeria, Tanzania, or Maui or whatever, or Malawi or whatever it is, right? Ivory Coast, whatever it is, we say Africa. To me, it's a little bit dismissive to say that when they're, it's like trying to say somebody's Caribbean or American or from the Americas versus American. Say American is normally US. The Americas include Mexico and Canada, right? So it sort of can be dismissive. Black culture is undeniably powerful. It's a shape global music, sports, art. You think about reggae, hip hop, track and field, basketball, soccer, or as the rest of the world call it, football. And it's been a sense of resilience for community, unity, and helping Black people throughout history overcome incredible odds and challenges throughout history, right? Undeniably. But as we continue to celebrate these achievements, we have to ask ourselves, because this is an imperative and important and a must if we're going to progress. Are we focusing too much on just a few areas for success, like sports and entertainment, while neglecting others? I have previously said, when having discussion with friends about this, that I think entertainment and sports are the opium of Black people. And people look at me like I'm crazy. Like, we have all these great celebrities, Drake and Rihanna, and we have Jay-Z's of the world and Oprah's of the world and Denzel Washington. What are you talking about? But when I think about these things, I think about it much more holistically, much more big picture. And I think about the mass of the population versus in sports and entertainment, the ones who make it are a small group of people, right? So in Black communities, a lot of times, success is often measured by fame and fortune in sports or entertainment, undeniably. And if you go to the museum in Washington, D.C., which I think Robert Smith helped to sort of put together, I thought it was a disproportionate amount of Black entertainers and athletes there versus others with other achievements. And I walked away shaking my head saying, this cannot be right. I can't tell you what a ton of Jewish athletes are. And the Jewish community does extremely well societally. Go look at AIPAC, what they did in this election cycle and how they influenced election with their money, right? I can't name many Chinese footballers, right? But China plays a lot of football. I can't name a lot of different races in terms of sports entertainment, but those societies, those races do extremely well. So if you look at our accomplishment on a global basis as a people in all the different fields, whether it's technology, whether it's science, we do well in some of those industries, in some of those disciplines, but it's not obvious to many of us as to who does what there, right? And it's also not as prominent, and it's also not optical. You can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't know it, right? If we come up with somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson, somebody would know of him, but most Blacks won't know about Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's sort of a celebrity scientist, right? That won't be obvious to people, and it's important. So most young people grow up want to be LeBron James or Beyonce or Drake, and these are the ones who I'm just talking about from a Black population standpoint. And while these successes are very inspiring, the reality, frankly, is only a small portion of them make it big. I mean, think about the NBA, what 450 individuals, and the Black population in the NBA gets decreased almost every single year. Because what's happening in the NBA is that I think American whites got fed up and just not playing the sports as much as they used to anymore because there's so much Black dominance. But that's not the same for European whites. They don't have the same situation in their community where Blacks dominate the high schools and the junior team and the traveling team. You look at the number of European whites who have come over and played in the NBA more recently, and you see that the Black portion of the population goes down. So even that avenue as an outlet is not what it used to be. And the overemphasis on sports creates a very narrow definition of success. Very narrow definition. It leads to underinvestment in education, science, technology, and business, and fields that create sustainable opportunities for generational wealth. And frankly, sports life is a very short window. And if you're one of these, many of these disciplines, that's a long window. Drew Ross, good night. Dr. Dan, good night. Hey, Dr. Dan, we should link. I want to bring you in my program at some point because I think you have a very interesting background. And I want to promote more of the individuals with your background. So, Dr. Dan, link me or text me and tell me. I know you work long hours, but tell me when you're available. Right? It's important. We're going to get to that Triple E. That's part of the conversation, Triple E. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. So if you think about it, for every professional athlete or Grammy-winning artist, there are thousands of young people whose dreams don't materialize. And a lot of times these individuals just focus on their dream so much, they don't have a fallback. So you think about a lot of athletes. You think about Jamaica, for example. All these people who play football, most of the people who play football come from desperate background. And they actually, when they go to high school, don't necessarily get the education they should because they focus on the sport and it doesn't materialize. They don't have an outlet. They don't have a way of pivoting to something that can help them be productive citizens, right? We need to celebrate Black excellence in academics, entrepreneurship, and innovation, just as we do in sports and in music. If we broaden the narrative, we can show young people that, you know what? Success isn't limited to fame. It can also mean creating impact in the boardroom, in the classroom, or in the laboratory. Now, I know some people come back and say, well, Cranky, we are in all these fields. What are you talking about? Yes, we are. But we are disproportionately in those fields compared to other fields. And we're disproportionate in those fields as compared to the rest of society. If you look at the compensation level for the different races in the US, I think Indians make an average about 100,000. Some segment of the Philippine population is around there also. Other Asians are up there. Then you may have Caucasians. And below, you just have the Latinos and the Blacks. And the Blacks are, a lot of times, close to the bottom or at the bottom, frankly, in a lot of different respects, educationally, economically, and otherwise. And even the Latino community continues to move up. They become a larger portion of the population. They're getting more opportunities in terms of how they operate and how they live. And so when you look at that balance, Blacks are being left farther and farther behind. And I believe that the focus on sports and entertainment, to me, is part of the problem, even though it provides a lot of value. Good night, Yah Fusion Sound. I don't think I've ever seen you before, Yah Fusion Sound. Good night. DC, good night. Evening entertainment, we don't have enough Black people in the decision-making position. Yes, so we should talk about that. So part of the problem we have is this. For every entertainer we have, or sport athletes we have a boss. So think about the NBA. How many Black owners are in the NBA today? Not talking about minority owners, because like Dwayne Wade is a minority owner in the Utah Jazz. But Michael Jordan was the only Black, and he's now not involved. He sold his ownership percentage, or majority ownership percentage in the Charlotte Hornets. So we have no Blacks. So even though Michael Jordan is a billionaire, there's always somebody of a different race who's richer and who is in control. Michael Jordan gets significant amount of compensation from Nike, but Phil Knight owns Nike, or it's one of the major shareholders of Nike. So even though we may have resources from the standpoint of these entertainers making a lot of money, a lot of times those entertainers are not creating employment. They're not creating opportunities for others. They're making their money, but they're mainly investors or recipients of payment. They're not the owners who are making decisions for a lot of people. Right? One could say, well, Magic Johnson, Jay-Z, they own their own companies. Yes. And Magic Johnson, I think, is now an investor in the Commanders, but he's not the majority owner of the Commanders. The face of those organizations are mainly Caucasian. Right? And so the question for us as people is, and we'll get to that, people, in terms of comparative people versus athletes. And I'll show you some numbers to sort of bring that up more. Another problem we have also, so we're just talking about the culture, right? The culture focused on sports. The culture focused on entertainment. In the culture, being tough and macho and violence is also sometimes glorified, right? And it's harmful behavior. So in some cities, Being real is tied to hardship, violence, or credibility. This mindset is reinforced, frankly, through music and movies and societal narratives that romanticize the struggles in incarceration. You hear people like, oh, you went to jail and he's tough and I'm this and I'm that. And you're like, why is it nice to go to jail? I just looked at a study where it's 500 and something blacks per 100,000 that are in jail, which is by a good number the highest in the US, for example. So when you create a toxic cycle where harmful behavior is celebrated and traumatized, we got to redefine what is authenticity and creativity, integrity and community building. That has to be redefined, not violence or suffering, right? So as I mentioned, in 2022, it's 558 incarceration per 100,000 people in local jails. That cannot be okay. And the rapid increase in incarceration in recent history was driven by, obviously, some of the Clinton policies of the 90s, the war on drugs, law and order, and tough on crime by way back with Nixon and with Reagan. That put more blacks in jail. And I'm sure this new president probably going to regress to some of those situations. That's why here Kamala got blamed for, when she was running for president, as to how tough she was on the black population, because a lot of times we get ourselves in trouble, right? I'm also going to touch on a very, very sensitive subject. I'm just looking at some of the comments here. People taught the world of neuroscience and Ben Carson, and well, we saw that. But we can't use one person as an example for anything. Ben Carson was just, I think, confused, actually. Brilliant person in terms of being a surgeon. He was put in the corner to run HUD. So as they do with the new, when Trump has the administration, you can sure blacks are going to run HUD because in the corner. It's not an effective cabinet position for anything. So Triple D said, Cranky Byron as a good example. Cranky was trying to be a big media business. Yeah, and Byron still is out. People say Byron's a billionaire. I haven't seen him as a billionaire. I've been looking at a lot of black billionaires. He's not. I haven't seen him as one, but I know he's been involved. I think what people like Byron have done, though, is that a lot of times a lot of these people try to own their own publishing. They try to be owners, right? They try to make. They're smart enough to realize that good support, the man don't control them. So Muslim says, Cranky is based on level of education. When I went to Ohio State, there were only 2 African Americans in my finance class. Yeah, well, it goes back to what we're talking about, right? Which is the culture emphasizes music and sports. There is not enough focus on some of the more fundamental things which are broad societal, or should have broad societal appeal, such as education, for example. So let me just go through some of these things that I think are, one could call them negative influence, and we can talk about the positive. So there's a positive and negative influence of religion on black people. And people who are religious are going to beat me to death. And they're going to get upset. Some may even leave the forum. But I actually believe this. So religion is not a pillar of black culture. It comes with both blessing and curse. On the positive side, religion, so we're not talking about God and people. We're going to bifurcate what is, an omnipotent being with religion, which is meant on worshiping or engaging that omnipotent being, right? Yeah, because you have different religion, whether you're a Muslim or Christian or whatever. On the positive side, religion has provided moral grounding, unity, and support for social movements, even though the religious people who are supporting Trump in this last election, I think they sort of threw morality out the door. But that's a story for another day. And black culture have been central to the fight for civil rights, right? In this country, in America anyway. Community building and providing a sense of hope and purpose. However, religion restricts ambition when certain interpretation of the scriptures basically discourage striving for success. For example, phrases like the meek shall inherit the earth can be misinterpreted to justify being passive and acceptance of hardship rather than motivating people to create change in their lives and communities. This whole concept that, so don't judge me if I get this wrong, because I haven't gone to church in a long time, but it's easier to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get to the kingdom of God or something like that. When I was 12, 13, I used to read this stuff, so don't forget me. Some may say, well, it's the wrong testament you're reading, Cranky. They all the same. Some people did with Old Testament, some did with New. So it's basically saying you shouldn't try to be rich. But if the meek shall inherit the earth, the people who I see inheriting the earth are not meek people. They are far from meek. Far, far from meek. They put meek way back when. Elon Musk is not meek. Jeff Bezos is not meek. Zuckerberg is not meek. Right? They're not meek people. But they're the ones deemed to be, we're saying the meek should inherit the earth. And I know people are going to say, well, you're taking things out of context. I say Triple E saying, I'm sorry. People read it literally. So faith should inspire action in the present, not just hope for the afterlife. We're here now. You have to maximize your potential here. And you can't have just one life to live and you're suffering through that life. That's a joke. We can't. I actually believe there are people who have manipulated mankind over time in allowing people to sort of think a certain way or move in a certain direction. Good night, Jeremiah. Thanks for being here. I actually believe that. Yeah, Princess Jillian, I agree. There are many athletes who have invested, right? A lot of athletes are now branching out. I think the modern athletes, I mean, there have been athletes who have done really well, right? Junior Bridgman, for example, who played for Milwaukee, owns a bunch of Burger King. You can point to, but there are a few. In fact, we can point out the few. I'm going to go show you the list of billionaires, people. You're going to see what I'm talking about globally. Now, where somebody asked this question earlier, where are the Black Bezos and Musk and Gates, right? Black cultures produce countless icons in sports and entertainment at the top of their game, at the top of the ladder. But we're not well represented in technology, which is the new world. We went from the agrarian society to industrial to now technology. That's the new frontier. Where are the Black persons? There are a few of them, definitely not enough of them. Right? Definitely not enough of them. And now that we have Black entertainers, such as Oprah and Jordan and all that, we need much more people. We need much, much more. Much, much, much more. So let's look at some numbers. I think this is important. Let's look at some numbers. Let's look at some numbers. This is very important, people. Let's look at some numbers. So here is, let me take this off. People say it's poor interpretation. I'm not interpreting anything poor. You guys can say what you want to say. That's how I'm going where I was when I was growing up in the church. So all the people who want to defend religion and get upset when I mention it because it's one of the most passionate subject, I have to smile and laugh. I'm going to get beaten. Princess Jillian's going to beat me. Others are going to beat me. There's nobody more religious than Caribbean people. And I think Jamaica and Trinidad, I'm going to show you the numbers on the top of the chart when it comes to murders. But here's the top. These are billion. Elon Musk should have been billion here, people. I was changes at the last minute because what Forbes had is different from what he's today. So Elon Musk has 326 billion. That should be billion. Jeff Bezos have 217. Mark Zuckerberg 195. These are the three richest people in the world. If you look at Forbes, their numbers are a little bit less because it was early in 2024. Since the market has taken off, since Trump took power, the market has improved by double-digit percentage. So these numbers is the more recent numbers, not what you see Forbes have. We'll be talking about 326, 217, 195. That's a lot of money. That's more money than all the Black countries put together probably have, actually, in terms of resources. That's ridiculous amount of money. 326 billion. Now, what happens is when you're that rich, you can buy everything and anything. Power is the most important thing to you. That's why Bezos is now the de facto president. All right? He wants to be president. He thinks he's president. So Trump have given him this whole non-cabinet position to be much more efficient and effective. And all those people who from all the unions who voted for Trump and all that, they have something coming. And if you're in the government and you voted for Trump, you may not have a job. But these are the numbers, people. These people are not in entertainment. Let me say this again. They're not in music. They're not in sports. They don't rap. They don't sing. They don't play football. They don't play basketball. They don't play cricket. They don't play golf like Tiger Woods. Yeah, Elon Musk is 326. He's not billion. I should have it here. I didn't have that. Right? So that's a lot of money, people. We don't have any Black people close to any of these numbers. No Blacks in the world. No matter how big LeBron James is, but he has a billionaire now, or Kanye, who was a billionaire, but he this way you have no power, people. You're a billionaire yesterday, Adidas cut you off, you're no longer a billionaire. You're a multimillionaire. Because you have no power. Because money comes with power. Mark Zuckerberg has power, he owns Facebook. Bezos owns Amazon, he has power. Musk owns SpaceX, he owns Tesla. He was at PayPal before, he has power. There's some blacks with power, but definitely not enough. Right? Now, if you think, so we think about these individuals as the richest people in the world. That's one segment. Now, if I was to pull up the blacks who are in entertainment, and this is important, and the richest blacks in entertainment that I'm aware of anyway, because some people don't show their money. Now, this is Michael Jordan, this is Oprah, this is Jay-Z. They have done phenomenally well. What's the uniqueness about these three? They just own to play the sport. They got to own aspects of the business they're in. Michael had his own shoe brand, took equity instead of money when he went to Nike way back when they were a small company. He's going to get royalty for life and a lot of it for the Jordan line. Oprah owned her own show, producer, owner XYZ. No, she's on network. She have the $3 billion. Jay-Z took rap, made it something else, have his own agency, done phenomenally well. But look at the numbers for Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk, and look at these numbers that we have here. These are entertainers, people. These are what we aspire to be as kids. It's fame, it's money, but they're not even comparable to those individuals. Relax, must win. I'm going to get to it. Not must win. Relax. You sometimes just jump the gun. Relax. I'm going to get to this. So these individuals whom they're very rich, I would say, it's all good. And they get all the fame, people, right? So let's deal with some other individuals who are rich, who are not as famous, and who have more money than these entertainers. I think that's important. That's important. Now, these are, based on my knowledge, the 3 richest black persons in the world. There is Aliko Dangote from Nigeria, who's been, I think one time he was aspiring to buy the Arsenal football team. Cement is his main business, but he's in a lot of other businesses, manufacturing, oil, whatever. He's from Nigeria, 13.9 billion. Now, this is the richest black person, people. Remember this. I just mentioned 3 of the richest whites. The least of those was 195. He's 13. So that person is about 15 times or more. And he's just number 3 on the list. Look at David Stewart, who is in technology, who lives in St. Louis, Missouri, 11.4 billion. And Robert Smith, who used to work at a firm I know really well, Goldman Sachs, was an investment banker, went and started his own private equity firm, 10.8 billion, and was instrumental in building that museum in Washington, where a lot of the black celebrity and renowned blacks, that whole museum are there. If you ever go to Washington, D.C., you should go visit it. Very interesting, but to me, too populated with entertainers. Now, these are the richest blacks. How many of you know of these individuals, and how prominent are they in the media that you know? They don't have the forum. Robert Smith is known because I think was it Morehouse, where he forgave $34 million for all the students who are graduating, like certain graduating class. Philanthropist, well known. David Stewart to me is not as well known. I think David Stewart, because he's in the technology, his wealth went from about 6 billion about 3-4 years ago to now 11, and it keeps going up. Because we're in the technology field, that's where you see a lot of new money. Right? It's just a lot of new money. And Dangote make his money the old-fashioned way. He's been this. I think his wealth increased about 600 million or 400 million in the last year or so. But he's been around the same level for a while. Smith has grown significantly. He went from, I think Smith manages about $100 billion now. And Smith went to, he went to Cornell and probably Harvard. Done phenomenally well. Wasn't born with money. And what he does really well is actually, he worked at a biochemical firm. He may have been a chemist actually at one point before he went to Wall Street. He worked at a biochemical firm for a while. Took him a lot of time to get an internship, learn the business, invest a lot in the business, and you can see how it materialized for him. So, venture capitalists are people who buy companies or private companies normally, help them grow, and then they have exit strategy where they get out of them, sell them and make money. He managed over $100 billion. His wealth is at 10.8. We do realize there's systematic barriers, limited access to capital, and cultural narratives that overemphasize fame over business, and success is sometimes held back in certain areas. However, we as a people need to invest in STEM, for example, which is mainly about science, technology, math. We have to do a better job of that. Real estate, we have to do that to create generational wealth for our kids, because if you look at the Caucasian population and those who were born or baby boomers, you know how much wealth they're passing down to the next generation? We don't have that wealth to pass down for different reasons. Rich Doyle, a chemical engineer. Yeah. And as I said, he works at Goldman. I'm very familiar with him, actually. And it's a firm I'm extremely well familiar with. So before the game says cranky, is the discussion limited to America? I name 20 African American millionaires, such as no, but I just put up the top 3 wealthiest people in the world. That includes all the Africans too. So there's some Africans who 6 billion, but the highest one I know is Dangote, who is 13 billion. Because I looked at Forbes provided this information. Now people's wealth is changing every day. So if you were to look at the top, because Forbes published, I'll take this down. The reason why I put this up is to compare this to the celebrities, right? We're glorifying all these these athletes and these entertainers, and they should get their glory because they have done well, but those are special skills. But we're not giving these same individuals who are doing, frankly, financially better, not saying they're doing better as people, they're doing financially better, the same level of respect, the same level of how we laud them and glorify them and give them their flowers. They're not getting it. Because sometimes we haven't done our research, so don't even know about them. Good night, float management. Positive vibration rate said Black people whereby don't control our resource industries. But here's the thing that I struggle with people, which is, even I live in Brooklyn in a Black community, I'm going to say majority is a Black community. And around me, most of the businesses I see are not owned by people who look like me. Restaurants, a number of them, but they're small mom and pop businesses. Right? These are not the major businesses in my area. Even the supermarkets we don't own. We don't own a lot of, and we spend a lot of money. So the problem that we have is this: the money we spend in our communities. Good night, Trevor Spence. We spend $1 in the supermarket. We spend $1 in the grocery store, and it's $1 in our community. And a lot of times we're not even employed in those disciplines. Somebody else is in is the employee, and it goes outside the community. It's not reinvested. Right? While if we go to other communities, I don't go to any Caucasian community in New York and see Black businesses. I just don't. Very few. I shouldn't say any, very few. Like, for example, in fact, the ones that I see, I don't know if they're Black owned. So if I go to Nigger restaurant, who's been in Manhattan forever, I don't know if it's Black owned. It's a Jamaican restaurant, Jamaican food, but I don't know who owns it. But I can tell a lot of businesses in my neighborhood are not owned by us. We don't own the gas stations. We don't own the supermarkets. We don't own the businesses that I go to, like King's Plaza, for example, close to where I live. We don't own them. And so the dollar you spend is no longer tenant. And if I go to Jewish community, and they're Hasidic Jews, for example, they have their own stores. They have their own communities. Every dollar they spend circulates in their environment. So the $1 is going to be multiplied by 10 or 20. In our community, that $1 is just $1. It's gone. So we're not enriching ourselves, because when we get the funds in, when we get the resources in, it gets expended. And it doesn't circulate. Right? It doesn't circulate. And that's a problem for us. So we have to find a way moving forward to overcome what I'm calling the curse of culture. Let's think about something, for example. One thing I had mentioned, and I talked about glorifying violence, and I've said this numerous times before. If you look at, and I just pulled this up, say maybe wrong, I got it from some source. I don't know if I can trust the source. I'll put it on the screen anyway, because I just pulled it up. This says this is the highest murder rate per capita Top 10 countries with the highest murder rate per capita. You know where all these countries are located, people? Look at all these countries. Now, I didn't go back and double check. I always double check my sources, but I was running at the last minute. I want to pull something up. This says this is highest murder rate per capita, people. You know where where most of these countries reside? This is actually crazy when I looked at this. I see Trinidad and St. Vincent are trying to catch Jamaica. It's not a good thing, actually. They should try to calm down. But these are murder rate per capita. That's what it indicates. I got to go back and check some of it and double check on this, but I just pulled this up. Yeah, and so it's Latin America and the Caribbean, right? There are a couple in South America. What are they all close to? What's the close proximity? They're close to the gun-making capital of the world. So when the U.S. is complaining about immigration, and people in the U.S. complain about immigration, Trump and his people, you're part of the problem. We have these gun-toting, gun-loving people from down south, because it's mainly down south situation. They make their guns, and the guns get exported. And the guns destroy lives. And a lot of these people, well, Venezuela is not here. I'm sure he's going to get up the list. But Venezuela gets squeezed by the U.S. Cuba gets squeezed by the U.S. That's why they migrate here. Point I'm trying to make is this, is that a lot of these countries are in this part of the hemisphere, close proximity to the U.S., and they have the highest murder rate. People say guns, people kill people, guns don't kill. No, guns kill people. And here's another example of this. If you go to Europe, you go to England, for example, when there's a gun crime, it's a big deal. The population of Britain, not just England, is about 60-something million. Jamaica has a much higher number of gun violence murders than the UK does. And Jamaica has a 3 million population. That doesn't make any sense, people. That doesn't make any sense. It's crazy to have these stats and this situation. Look at St. Lucia, look at St. Vincent, look at Trinidad. And these are all English speaking, by the way. Now we go down the list, we see some Spanish speaking, but it's a lot of English speaking. And one can ask the question, well, shouldn't people take more responsibility? Now let me jump on some topics which I think influences some of this, right? So this is about culture. We have a gun culture. We're influenced by guns for some reason. Now, the underlying factors that drive this, as I mentioned earlier in the outset discussion, poverty is a big deal. Economic opportunity or lack thereof is a big deal. Education is a huge, huge deal. You guys tell me, how many educated people do you know, even call them, say, college graduates, involved in some of these murders? At least pulling the trigger. Sometimes they're behind the scenes trying to influence something, frankly. But a lot of times, the people who are doing these are not the most educated. So education is an imperative and important. And if you live in Brooklyn like I live, and some of the best schools in Brooklyn, like, the school downtown Brooklyn, which focus on the sciences and which send off his kids to some of the best schools, the best Ivy League schools, there are very few, if any, blacks in those schools. It's mainly populated by Asians and Caucasians. Nowadays, mainly Asians. And because their culture is about education, education, education. Now, sometimes it can be stifling for those cultures, but they know what success looks like, and they know what the ingredients are for success, and they emphasize that in their homework. Now, here's another example, people, of something that we got to think about for our culture. And this is cultural too, which some people won't like me saying this. The lack of two-person households for blacks is a problem. Let me repeat that. It's almost cultural now. The lack of two-person households is a problem, a huge problem. You go look at, because normally it's the woman is in the household, the man is no longer there, the kid is not getting guidance, support, financial, otherwise, from both parents. No, don't come and tell me that currently you're generalizing here. There's a lot of two-person households. Yes, but look at the stats and where we have problems. You don't have a situation in the house where you have a dad and a mom and they can play off each other, good cop, bad cop. You don't have that. Or we can double up the resources to help and manage the financial situation. You don't have that, right? What you have is the woman in the household. She's doing a job. The kid is not getting guidance, support, financial, otherwise, from both parents. No, don't come and tell me that currently you're generalizing here. There's a lot of two-person households. You don't have a situation in the house where you have a dad and a mom and they can play off each other, good cop, bad cop. You don't have that. Or we can double up the resources to help and manage the financial situation. You don't have that, right? She can't be home with the kid to provide guidance. And what happens? Kids go off on a stray. Not a good look. Yeah, DC, and people will go to school for financial crimes. But we're talking about the more generalized comments that are more about what happens generally, not aberrations, right? Before the game is saying, cranky, is it culture? Black people have endured slavery, Jim Crow, that was a collective system that limited to the accumulated. I am just saying, look, here's what I'm saying. I'm saying culture is part of the problem. I'm not saying culture is the whole problem, people, and it's all intertwined. But a lot of these things are embedded in the culture. How we live, the music we have, the entertainment we do, our behaviors, some of it is cultural. Didn't I give the definition of culture earlier? So don't just go back and talk about what slavery did and what we have gone through as a people and the pain we have felt and all that. When are we going to pivot and change the narrative? I think I'm getting a call, people. Hey, 1 second. I don't think you're hooked up. So let me try to hook this up. Give me 1 second. Yeah, it's hooked up. I'm not sure what's happening. Give me 1 second. I'm getting a call, and I cut off my caller, which is not good. And people, you can call in. Well, give me 1 second. Somehow it's not coming through. Let me link it up. All right. Well, give me 1 second. I'll have you come through. We can talk. I'm trying to connect to the Bluetooth, and it's struggling here. I got a phone call, everyone. I apologize. And it doesn't want to link. It may be because it knows it's you. It's saying connection unsuccessful. It may be because it knows you. Let me try to give me 1 second. I don't want to have you just talk and I put up my ear. Actually, I'm trying to link it up so it comes through the system. I have no idea why it doesn't want to connect. Let me call you back. Sean. I'm gonna turn the phone off. When you turn the phone off and on, now that's what happens. Let me turn it off and on and see what happens. All right. I'll call you back. So this was Kishan trying to reach me, people, and somehow I'm gonna turn my phone off and turn it on because that always seemed to work. Not sure why it doesn't link. But I think sometimes we're confused with culture and pain. Culture also involves behavior, right? And I was looking at divorce rates. You know, India's divorce rate is about 1%. India have a lot of poverty. I don't see a lot of crime there. I see India have a lot of cricketers, not a lot of footballers, but a lot of Indians do focus on just education. Now, I'm not saying, people, that we don't have other situations that affect us materially and that precludes us from achieving our objective that are systematic. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, is the culture and sports and entertainment something we need to de-emphasize or emphasize? That's the question. And if we emphasize it, do we make sure we have fallback? Somehow my system does not want to connect. And I don't know why. So I can receive phone calls here. It's saying, make sure BTA is turned on in range. Oh, you know what happened, people? Oh, I need 1 second. I know what happened. Wow. I think I left my I'm about to take the phone call separately. I actually don't know what happened. Give me 1 second, people. Give me 1 second. I have to get this connect the BTA so I can take phone calls. Give me 1 second. I think I took my connector when I went out of town, and I hope I didn't misplace it. It allows me to link my system. Let's see if it's here. Oh, yep, it's here. I'm saved by the bell. So I bought 2 separate Zoom systems, one for traveling and one local. No one I couldn't connect. So let's see if it works now. See, that was on me. Let's try this again. So I can call back Kishan. Let's see if it links up. It may take a little while to link up. Let's hope it registers. Otherwise, I'll take the phone call the old-fashioned way, where it doesn't go to the system and we have to just listen on speaker. And it doesn't want to link. This may be a problem. Hey, Kishan, call back. We just put you on speaker, Kishan, because somehow my BTA device is not linking up because I had, but it should work though, because when I traveled and I put it on, it worked immediately. Unless it's trying to link with my other system. It's not. It's saying it's not in range, so that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. De-emphasize. What are you talking about, Rich Toy? You're saying I should de-emphasize. De-emphasize what? All right, Kishan, good night. I'm gonna put you on speaker because for some reason, somehow, my BTA is not linking. Go ahead.
Yeah, we might disagree on the football stuff sometimes in terms of thumbnails, etc. But I think we might agree on this topic.
we finally have consensus as a people. That's a start.
Hey, listen, let me say this, Frankie, right? I think in the black culture there's a misrepresentation of the people, right? And I want to start off by saying I remember when Joe Biden was running for presidency, and there was one particular individual that I wouldn't say that the black people chose that individual to speak of them, but I think it was really disrespectful to the African American community, and that individual was Cardi B, right? No.
Oh, Cardi B. Okay.
I'm not going to say that she's stupid or anything or degrade her in such regards, right? But I don't think she was the best.
One second. Can you guys hear him now? Hearing now? Okay, good. He's now in the system. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think in terms of Cardi B being chosen as the individual to speak on behalf of African Americans, I think in terms of our counterparts, that's how they view us in terms of we're nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If Cardi B was the one that was chosen. No, I put it to you, Cranky, in terms of the black community on a broad scope, right? I think it just comes down to culture and mindset in terms of, what is culturally acceptable in the black community. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And two-parent household for me is very important because I grew up in a two-parent household, and not only a two-parent household, but I had siblings who did set examples for me in terms of what they would do around me and what they would try to implement in my life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I am of the notion that I think education is much more important than sport. Now, if you're good in sport, I think there has to be a balance in terms of a fallback. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember when I initially started high school, I was so focused on sports that my grades weren't good. And, across the board in my family, they kind of took me out of sports for a while until my grades started to become good, because they were of the notion that, listen, if you don't succeed in sport, you need something to fall back on, which is obviously education. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if you don't take your education seriously, then what will be can be, you're just going to leave high school without anything, and that becomes even more burden for the individuals around me and for society in general, because you're somebody that is not productive, that is not adding anything to society. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like on the whole scope of black community, there's just a huge misrepresentation in terms of what blacks are about compared to our other counterparts. For example, you look at the music industry. I don't really know of any white female rapper to that extent.
You don't know of what?
Any white female rapper.
There are some. I've seen some.
But they're not at the forefront. You know what I'm saying?
No, they're not. But I have seen some actually, and pretty decent actually. Even though I'm not. There's a lady that comes on. What's the show of the guy?
Wild Now.
Yeah, Wild Now.
Yeah, but I'm saying she's not like the biggest. You know what I'm saying?
But I'm saying she's not a bad rapper, but she's a decent rapper. But I'm just saying, I would agree she's not at the top of the chart. Yes.
That we're sending into the communities. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I listen to white rappers in particular, they don't sing as much gun songs or sexual songs compared to their black counterparts. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like
so let me play devil's advocate, because I did agree with Maverick today that I don't think music is the primary reason as to why. I think it's maybe a ancillary reason as to why we have problems in the black community. I believe that people are singing or rapping about their experiences, right? Now, the question you ask yourself, first of all, I didn't grow up in a two-parent household. I grew up with, and maybe that's why I'm cranky, I grew up with my great-grandmother. Not grandmother, great-grandmother. Let me just say that. And my brother and I grew up in the same household. We are polar opposites in terms of direction of travel, what we did, right? So sometimes the individual got to take responsibility. But a lot of times you need that support structure to help you in your growth and development. Right? People are going to sing songs and rap about what they've been exposed to. And if what they're singing about is received by the general audience, because movies emphasize violence. Blacks don't own movie studios, right? Movies emphasize violence. I don't necessarily think it's the entertainment that drives the violence. It's a component of it, but it's a very minuscule component that drives it. So I'll give an example. If I take away all your guns, you think we'd have all these murders that we have in Jamaica? If there were no guns in Jamaica, for example, let's say we had no guns in Jamaica. People are not brave enough to go attack you with no knife and no machete. London have a lot of knife crimes, but the murder rate in London is significantly less between knives and guns than you see in other parts of the world. They have a lot of knife crimes. You know what? Because guns are not available. And you can kill 5, 6. Will you be killing 7, 8 people with a knife? You only hear about those things in China, for example. Frankly, you don't hear about it in the Western world as much with knife killings, for example. Right? And it's hard to go kill 7, 8 people with a knife versus a gun, a machine gun, which can kill a ton of people. How many mass shootings have we heard in England or in Scotland? I think Scotland had one in the 90s and they changed their gun laws. So America has some culpability and responsibility for some of the things that we experience in our community. Look at the Caribbean and Latin America and South America. In terms of the number of gun crimes, all those guns are made in America. Most of those guns are made in the US. So those things are not debatable. Right? Most things are not debatable. So there has to be a way, Kishan, in which America takes some responsibility and accountability, but also the individuals need to do, and it starts at home. And and a lot of times black men gonna hate this because I know black men have their own thing about how they being this standard that, but they're not taking responsibility in the home. They're not taking responsibility for the obligation. They create kids and they don't want to support them. They're promiscuous. That's part of the culture. Promiscuity in the Caribbean is part of the culture. So when you're promiscuous and you're gonna have kids, then you're obligated to take care of the kid. You don't necessarily have to live in the home, you know. You got to be part of the child's life. Now, it's harder if you're not in the home, but you got to be part of the child's life. That's a cultural situation. It's becoming a cultural situation nowadays. It's a fact.
Well, the thing for me, Cranky, in terms of music, I don't feel like it's the overarching factor as to why, you know, certain countries experience violent crimes. But I think what it does is the message creates a decay in the society over a period of time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it allows things to be a bit more socially acceptable that wasn't once was. You know what I'm saying? And I remember reading this book, The Myth of Norm, by I think it's Dr. Gerber Matte, right? And the myth of norm is basically what is a norm sometimes is also or can be a detriment to our society. You know what I'm saying? And some of the things in certain societies, especially in black societies, what they're trying to normalize now, it's a detriment to the community.
So give me an example. Give me an example. If you make these statements, you gotta have examples.
All right, for example, you know, you look at could I use drug use as an example in terms of the message that we're sending in songs about certain drugs that wasn't once, you know, popular in the black community? I think you have messages in songs where, like, especially in dancehall, where it's about popping pills. No, I don't think, you know, Jamaica is facing a pill issue at this moment in time. But the more you sing these things and normalize it, eventually that will take over in terms of what people use further down the line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to restrict art, right? Because music is art. Entertainment provides value and a reprieve from societal challenges. What I will say is that if you improve people's lives and those in entertainment, they'll sing about more productive things, right? The people who are going into entertainment are people who are probably in very challenging situations a lot of times. Most of these entertainers that we see, not necessarily actors, but like rappers or DJs who do reggae music, dancehall music, they come from difficult backgrounds. Even in sports, a lot of them come from difficult backgrounds. One father, one mother, one parent household, right? They're trying to get themselves out of poverty. And they're going to use whatever means is now relatable, acceptable, digestible in this environment. If it's going to sell, they're going to do it, right? Let's think about this, people. Gun sells. People are making guns that kill people. I know the guns are being used illegally and they're still making the guns. Why aren't they being called? Why are we blaming the entertainers, for example, versus those individuals who have more control, more resources, and allowing guns to be made that used to kill people in the US and everywhere else, frankly, because there's a lot of gun crimes in the US. But a lot of crimes are committed in disproportionately in the non-majority community than the majority community. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. You know, the USA is not just now in the 21st century that they've been making guns. They've been making guns for a long period of time, right? Now,
Right.
you talk about America taking responsibility for gun crimes across the world in certain countries, but you look at Jamaica, for example, through, I think America is the detriment, or they have been the detriment to Jamaica. And the reason why
No,
I
no,
say
no,
that is
no.
because
Back up on a comment.
no,
It goes,
no, the reason why I say that,
no, let me just say before you say something. And the reason why I bring up this whole culture being a benefit and a detriment, or being a positive or a negative, or being part of the crisis we have and the elixir for us is this. It's no different from America. America is a big benefactor for this region. It also created a lot of the problems for the region. Right? So it's both sides of the equation.
yeah, but what I'm trying to say is when you look at Jamaica, right? And when I learned about Jamaica back in, by the time they gained independence and even before that, you look at statistics as far back then, you know, yes, for one, you didn't have much guns in the country, but also the mindset of the society in Jamaica was quite different. And until you would say Edward Seaga, who is from America, who became the Prime Minister of Jamaica at one point in time, and then you had the PNP and JLP, where there was an influx of guns in the country. And then from then, violent crimes in Jamaica, especially murders, it has been on a rapid rise since the 1980s up till now. So that's where America even plays a part in terms of being a detriment to Jamaica and our society. And the reason as to why is because we had somebody who was born in America who eventually became the Prime Minister of Jamaica, which I think that's utter rubbish in terms of somebody who's coming from a different country and leading my country. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's one way in terms of which America did play a part in terms of the decay in Jamaica society, because before the 1980s and so, you had crimes in Jamaica and whatever the case is, but in terms of, I think people miscalculate crime or misrepresent crime in the sense that you have crime and it can be robbery, sexual assault, or whatever the case is. But in terms of Jamaica's main problem, it has been violent crimes, which is murder and shootings. You know what I'm saying? And
No, you're not wrong, right? Because I was in Jamaica at that time. So
yeah.
before the 80 election, the pervasiveness of gun was in Jamaica. Now, what Jamaica ran into is Manly trying to be cute and try to play both sides of the fence and got burned. So guns came in from Cuba via the Soviet Union, and guns came in from America via the CIA, because they were both sides trying to win the hearts and minds of people by any means necessary. And you had a flood of guns from the US for the JLP and a flood of guns coming through Cuba for the PNP. And we see what the outcome of that is. And it's gone south since then. People don't realize this, back in the, I think, early 70s, I think the Jamaica dollar was stronger than the US dollar in terms of exchange rate. I think at one point it may have been 80, 90, or even 70 Jamaica cents to a US dollar. And look what it is today, right? And it's almost unbelievable. Like, go check the history and look at the exchange rate and value versus what it is today. And the degradation of the society and the increase in the murder rate can be attributable to a number of different factors, but the proliferation of guns in the society is a key one.
And my last point before the park ranking, in terms of religion, right?
Yeah.
No, I can say this publicly. I believe in God. I believe in God and I don't believe in God. And I said that to say that. I said that.
How can you believe in God and don't believe in God? I like that.
All right, listen. How my parents, I was brought up in, Seventh-day Adventist also, right? Now, I had to go to church out of respect for my parents. So they just send me to church. I can't stay home because I'm young. Some just go to church, right?
Right.
Now, there's a fear factor with God for me in terms of like, I believe that there's a higher being and I believe that it is God, right? So I have that fear in terms of I have to believe that there's a God, but then I question if there's a God. So that's what I mean in terms of I believe in a God, but also don't believe in a God, because it's not like I went on a journey discovering this person for myself, which I'm yet to go on that journey. I eventually want to go on that journey. But I feel like religion has played a part in terms of, especially in the Black community, being lazy. And I said that to say, I remember, my father before, well, he's deceased now, but he had a business, right? And, my mother was, a huge Christian or whatever the case is. And oftentimes I remember her saying, for example, that, you need to come to church, that, to my father, like, you need to come to church and whatever the case is. And, he was of the notion that, listen, if I take this day off and I go to church, how will I feed my family the next day? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And her response oftentimes was, God will bless you. But bless you in what sense? Nobody's just going to show up tomorrow and give you the money that you would have made on the day that you would have worked. You know what I'm saying? Or the day that you didn't work. So I think that, we've used the, religion and the Bible, and, we've miscalculated or took certain things out of context in terms of what it actually means. And it has been a detriment to, the Black community in general, in the sense that we're not going out there and earning our daily bread as we should, rather we're too dependent on this higher being, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I'm just going to say this as well. It shows how foolish some people are in terms of they literally give their last cranky, thinking that God is going to bless them tomorrow in terms of tithes and offering.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
one thing
Yeah.
I don't believe in.
And then we get these individuals who are religious who will say, everyone is taking this too literally. Well, why are so many people taking it literally? Is that the preachers are not providing context and perspective? Is it that people are not educated enough to understand what it is? Or is it that the Bible is just a very confusing book and it's not as clear as it should be? Because here's the problem that we have, Kishan. I'm going to say this out loud. I'm going to get beaten for this, and I can take the beating. I think religion has too much influence on over people's lives.
I agree.
And I believe that the Bible was written by man, right? So we talk about Moses going on to some. First of all, I don't know who people in their right mind can believe some person of some persuasion is the chosen one and chosen faith, and then believe all the other stuff that comes out of it. Like, get a life. And I know that's very dismissive of me, but I don't believe in that. I believe in God, but all the other stuff that people do about religion and Bible and all that. When I used to go to church, Kishan, I used to struggle because I put my hand up to ask preacher a question, and my great grandmother look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, well, I can't come to this place if I can't ask questions because I'm confused about certain things.
And the thing that gets me with religious people is that when you're trying to be logical in terms of asking a logical question, there's always a huge pushback in terms of, oh, you should never question this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's not that you're questioning it. It's not that you're questioning it out of disrespect. It's more so to gain an understanding of what you're getting yourself into. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen that in my brought-ups in terms of going to church, etc., etc.
Yep.
And it was to a point where when I was going to church, it was just a show face, rather than believing in this being or believing in my faith. You know
yeah, look, people, I'm not saying religion does not value, don't get me wrong, if it's done the right way. And I know people are going to say, cranky, stick on topic like Triple E. This is part of the topic about culture. Religion is part of our culture. It's part of the whole topic. Religion is part of the culture. One parent also is part of the culture. Music is part of the culture. Entertainment is part of the culture. Right? Being aggressive is part of the culture, especially with Jamaicans. Overly aggressive versus managed aggressiveness. That's part of the culture. And those who are talking about blasphemy, I don't even know what that means. It doesn't really matter to me if you talk about blasphemy. I have no idea what that means. That's a way of controlling people. The Bible is used to control people. I know I have people in my family and community who look at me like I have two heads and just shake their head and get upset with me. But because it's so ingrained in them, they haven't taken a step back to think on their own. Right?
And also, cranky, if I look at individuals that I went to church with, well, not went to church with, but I guess you could say so, right? Because we got there on a Saturday or whatever the case is. Well, when I look at a lot of these people in church looking back now, I'm not going to say that these individuals were unsuccessful, but I think that they could have done much better in life if it wasn't this, if they weren't leeching onto religion as much as they did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it was so ingrained in them that, certain things they put aside in terms of, achieving things on a level that is I'm trying to construct it the proper way, but I think there's too much of a belief in this higher being that,
right,
things will always be all right, even if, you don't do the logical thing to achieve something. You know what I'm saying?
Here's the problem, Kishan, people in the chat, listen to this, because some of you guys have made no allowance for anything else. Where it's so ingrained in us, and we have our faith, and I'm not trying to dissuade you from your faith, but here's what I don't understand. If something is good, it's all God doing. And if it's bad, it's never God doing. But God is omnipotent. He knows everything about everything, but that's what we choose to believe. That's your belief. I believe the omnipotent being didn't want anybody to worship them because it's a man concept, and men want power and people to bow down to them and worship them because men have ego. God don't have no ego. So when you sit there and say, oh, I make some money, God did this for me, God should make me win in a sporting event, I look at you like you have two heads. Why should God choose you over the opponent? Does that make any sense to anybody? And no matter how educated people become and informed they become, because we can't explain how we got here, because we can't explain some things that happen, we believe we shouldn't question it. Well, you know what? God gave me the ability to question. So I'm going to question since he gave me that ability to do so. And if people don't like it, I can't help you. But I was trained like how you were trained. I grew up with my great grandmother in Jamaica. There's nobody more religious than my great grandmother. Nobody, period. No matter what you are. They didn't curse, didn't blaspheme, doing anything. I grew up with her, and I listened to her, and I respected her. But I have my own life and my own curiosities.
But listen, Cranky, big up yourself.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah,
so
it's very complex.
There's one definitive answer to how we fix this. I think there's a.
So I'm gonna provide some. I'm gonna provide not solution. I'm gonna provide some suggestions. So I'm gonna go through my list of suggestions going forward. Thanks a lot, Kishan, for the call. Yeah. Kishan and I finally agree upon something. I don't like his thumbnails, a lot of them, but I like his brain. So let me say this. First of all, we gotta expand the narrative. So let me just go through my list here that I made, and then we can talk about some other things as come to this. And some people are gonna get very uncomfortable with this discussion. They will leave the forum because they're very religious and they don't want to hear anything that may affect their religion because they don't want to go to hell and get burned up, right? We can expand the narrative when it comes to culture and the implications to our society we should focus on. Celebrate Black scientists, get to know them, entrepreneurs, educators with the same energy we celebrate artists. Someone is calling. Good evening. What do you have to say?
Good night. Crispy here. I want to.
Crispy, yeah, I'm limited to the call to 5 minutes. So you're that from outside. Go ahead. Kishan got more than 5, but I'm limited to the call for 5 minutes going forward. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to challenge the notion that poverty and lack of education cause crime.
Okay.
No.
Okay, let's think about when we say crime. We're talking about crime, which is like murder, things of that nature, right? Bodily harm. So there is crime as it relates to ones that may be financial in nature, fraudulent type crimes, and there are crimes where I may commit murder or injure someone. So go ahead.
Yes, I'm talking about the murder. There's no correlation. Okay. Because if you isolate to Jamaica only, I'm going to
No. It's a global discussion, not Jamaica only.
Okay. No. Cuba has been under heavy sanctions for 60 years. Cuba is one of the poorest countries in the world,
right? And
Cuba has one of the lowest murder rates. Zimbabwe is one of the poorest countries in the world, has been under heavy sanctions.
Right.
Zimbabwe has one of the lowest murder rates.
Right.
Malawi is the same thing too.
Right.
If you go to Jamaica, Portland is Jamaica's poorest parish, and Portland has the lowest murder rate.
Right.
People associate behavior with poverty. So because people behave functional, we automatically assume that they're not poor. And even in America here, when you look on the poorest part in America, they are not where we think they are. We think as inner city areas being the poorest part of countries, but when you look on the data, that's not true. The poorest part of any country are the rural areas.
Okay.
Even take New York City, for example, or New Jersey, and the inner city areas are not the poorest part of those states.
Okay.
But because of the dysfunctional behavior in these areas, we automatically assume that they are the poorest areas, they are the poorest parts of the country, and therefore, if poverty is causing the violence. And there's no correlation.
Right. So tell me. So we said this was a complex matter. We talk about the factors that influence this. We talk about education. We talked about resources. We talked about family structure. We talked about availability of guns. We didn't say it was a one-dimensional thing, but some of the themes here surrounds resources. How many rich people you know are committing murder on a regular basis? How many college-educated people you know are committing murder on a regular basis? Because you said education and poverty were not. No. Hold up. You said education and poverty were not some of the primary reasons. Please explain to me how many well-off people you know are committing murder, and how many educated people you know, really educated, are committing murder.
Not many, but only a small portion of any population is college educated. Only a small portion.
Right. Let's say high school graduates. Let's use high school graduates, for example. You know, there was a study done in St. Louis one time, and I don't have a study with me, which basically said they did some assessment of the murders committed in that place for a given year, and all the murders were done by people who didn't have a high school diploma.
That may
so
be
you just said educate.
I'm
I'm giving just one tidbit. I'm just give you an example, right? You go show me in Jamaica where a lot of people graduate high school versus those who are non-high school graduates. So somebody have 6, 7 passes in their subject versus those who have none or didn't graduate, and do a comparative. When we come to this discussion, please bring the stats for me. I would love to see the stats.
Yes, but we also have to compare poor people against poor people.
Right, but here's what you fail to realize.
You have many poor people who are very peaceful, so it cannot be the poverty.
So here's the thing. Wait now. You just mentioned, you gave some example of Zimbabwe. You gave some example of Cuba. You gave some example of Malawi, right? What you haven't talked about, you didn't give China either, right? What you haven't talked about is the government and how the government operate. Are these democracies? Are these totalitarian regimes, right? That's an example, right? Proximity to guns, for example. You haven't talked about that. What you've talked about is give examples of country like Cuba, which have a high literacy rate, where they have a totalitarian government, where guns are not readily available. We haven't talked about that. So when we make these generalized statements, we're not providing context to the statement.
The guns are readily available to people in certain areas. That's correct. But also, there's a market for it. Just like how the former president is talking about the issue with the fentanyl coming across the border,
right.
And that's a problem, but there's a market in America for that drug. So the market has to be dealt with as well. It's a two-part situation.
But Carla, if I don't have access to guns, how am I going to fire the gun?
That's correct. You're correct. Yeah, but you have to address the market. And also, if you look at a country like Switzerland, where guns are readily available to everyone, Switzerland has a very low murder rate as well. So we got
to be very careful with this, right? You're talking about Switzerland, one of the richest countries on earth. Been to Switzerland, people. Okay. Been to Zurich. I'm telling you something. Probably the cleanest city I've ever been in. Money everywhere, right? I just mentioned resources. You said poverty and lack of education are not part of the problem for this, right? So don't use Switzerland because Switzerland is rich. Very rich.
I'm going to use America. The average American, I can get a hold of a gun. And America is a relatively peaceful country. America is a peaceful country. If you look at where America is on the murder chart, America is in the 40s. So sometimes we look on the headlines.
America is a very educated society, right? America is a very educated society, right?
And when you say educated, most Americans don't have a college degree.
Because look, I just downed the bar down and said we're going to use high school graduates as an example in this equation, right? I lowered the bar and said we're going to use high school graduates, not college graduates. High school graduates are dropouts. Because here's the problem we run into. When you make a definitive statement that says poverty and education are not part of the problem as to why we have all these situations we have, I struggle with that.
You struggle with it because that's a narrative, that's a prevailing narrative for a long time. But when you look on the facts, for example, in 1962 when Jamaica gained independence,
right.
Jamaica was poorer than it is now.
Were there guns available for Jamaica to be killing each other? Were there definitely guns available?
Hold on. Just let me finish and come to the gun for a minute.
Okay.
Jamaica had 1.5 million people at the time. The population, and Jamaica had 50 murders that year, around 50 murders in 1952.
Uh-huh.
If we hold that the murder tally should have increased the population, then Jamaica should be averaging 100 murders per year. That has not occurred. So something in the Jamaican culture changed over time.
We just mentioned, if you were listening, that in 1979-80, when you had the conflict between the PNP and the JLP between communism and capitalism, that there was an infiltration of guns in the country. We just talked about that.
I agree with you, but even with that infiltration of guns,
right.
That's 1 year, 1980, Jamaica average, the murder was 800, but it went back down and it was averaging, that's an anomaly. It went back down to around 300 per year throughout the 80s. So even with the inflow of guns, the murders were concentrated in certain specific communities.
Yeah, but what you're missing, Carla, is that it happened because we had an election. A lot of killings occurred about then. But you just said yourself it went from the 60s, from the 50s to the 300. That's a 6 times number between 19... Yeah, go ahead.
I was born in Jamaica.
Okay.
In the 80s. And I have seen Jamaica's culture change. I have witnessed with my own 2 eyes, Jamaica culture has changed for the worse.
But we just talked about the culture from a concept of a number of different factors, right?
Hold on. But Jamaica's culture change, and it's not because of lack of education or anything like that. The culture has changed for the worse.
Why? When you say define the culture, and then indicate how it has changed for the worse in what way?
The culture has changed for the worse in that we have become increasingly more violent over the years. We have become more crass over the years. We have.
So what triggered that violence in us? We had it hidden and it just came out? How does that work? Hello?
Give me a second. Yes. I want to, before I get to that, I want to talk about the
you know your time is almost up, right? You know your time is almost up. I said 5 minutes, and we've gone 5 minutes already.
If we're having a fruitful conversation, it cannot be reduced to 5 minutes. Like,
I didn't know you were running the show. I apologize. I didn't know you were running the show. I apologize. I apologize for that. It's your show. Run your show. So I can't reduce to 5 minutes. Let's see how this works.
The values are changed for whatever reason. I don't know all the reason, but the values change. In my grandmother's time and my mother's time, good music was music that talked about love and respect each other. I have seen that change to where good music is about shoot on in my head and drive up on the lane and spray the lane and in the dance, and the Jamaican people give that a gun salute. That became what was valued as good entertainment. That is a cultural change.
So Carla, let me stop for a second. Let me stop it for a second. So you just mentioned that the murder rate went from 50 to 800 and back to 300, right? You just said that, right?
Yes. So
the people who are doing these DJing come from those communities, correct? And they're seeing that about them. So before, people just sing about poverty, didn't they? But Marley sings about poverty and Trenchtown and all that, didn't he? Which is what you're experiencing. Listen, listen for a second. He sang about things he was experiencing, right? Which was more about societal factors. And in fact, his music changed over time to be more love-oriented in one aspect, right? He sang about what he saw, what his experiences, Trenchtown, tough, difficult. That's where he lived for a bit of his life when he went from country into town, right? These kids who are singing now are singing about what they're seeing. Guns, murder.
That's not true. They are not singing about what they're seeing. They are promoting. Singing about what you see and promoting are two different things. They are promoting is a difference. Singing about what you're seeing is different from promoting.
So Carla, let me just say this to you, because the conversation is going to be finished in about a minute. You've got more than 5. Let me just say this to you, which you're missing, because you have your own view and I have my own view. So we may differ. Let me just say this. If you hear in Jamaica, 7 people get killed, 6 people get killed, 5 people get killed, all at once, which wasn't the norm historically, but becoming more prominent in Jamaica, and the people live in this community where you pass a line on a border and that's a problem, you can get killed, and you're saying they're not experiencing, not seeing this, I'm confused.
That's not what I'm saying. I am saying the musicians are not singing about what they're seeing, or they are promoting. Is a difference. For example, when Mavado said, cut the newborn throat, because you know me not play, murder your little brother for your funeral day. That's not singing about what you're seeing. That's promoting.
Okay.
When Scott Ben say, big up all the warriors from the present to the past, and lure them die for a class, and he went on and big up Dodos and Zeke and all of the bands in Jamaica. He's promoting. There's a difference.
But here's what you're missing.
When
He's
wait. Some of guys spider to die shot in an art in an eye.
So
Some of guys spider to die and informer to dead. And they are promoting.
Carla. He's talking about his experiences. He's talking about what's in society. I'm gonna cut you off if you don't listen. You know what?
Why don't it stop at that though, Cranky? Why don't they promote?
You're not, Carla. You have 10 more seconds. Because here's what happened. We're having a conversation and you just want to do all the talking. And in your mind, you make no allowances for anyone else's opinion, which is not good. So when you say something and I explain to you that, look, in some instances, Dudos is a real person, right? Willie Haggart is a real person. So they sing about them, there are things that happen in the environment. You're like, no, we're just promoting. They're singing about things which are not going to resonate with society, which are going to sell records, but it's happening. Killing young people, it happens in Jamaica. Killing kids, killing family members, killing mothers, it happens on a regular basis. That's their experiences, or that's what they're seeing. You're saying it's just promoting and they're differentiated. How do we differentiate if you're promoting something and you say it doesn't happen? I can understand that, but it's happening. So how can you say it's just promoting is not happening?
Again, a journalist is different from an influencer. A journalist reports what's going on. A commentator promotes an agenda. Those are two different. So
Smith. So wait. So Smith. Wait. So Smith is not a journalist.
Who is Smith again?
From ESPN. He's not a journalist.
Stephen, no.
Wait. Back up. Stephen Smith is not a journalist. That's what you're saying.
He vacillates between the two.
But here's the thing, people. What we got to understand. The world is changing dramatically. The previous journalist is now an influencer. And influencers are not journalists. There is a conversion of all these disciplines in today's society. And it's hard to differentiate because we don't have those clear demarcation and barriers between all these disciplines. Right? So we can't make these definitive statements about some of these things when everything is blurred and it's now gray. It's no black and white anymore. It's gray.
You know who took a stand against the music? For example, the gay community. If you realize these musicians do not think about killing gays anymore. Right? Because the gay community took a stand against it. The gay community did not say, this is what they're experiencing. And the gay community say, stop singing.
No, it's hate music. No. Look.
We're being hurt.
Because those are hate. We're not call it. They're hate music, and people should take a stand against hate music. But doesn't mean so where people kill it. Wait, call out 1 second. Wait, call out 1 second. Did people go and kill people because of this music? Did they go out and kill gays because of this music? Did they go and kill gays because of the music?
No, but music is like alcohol.
Wait. So if we're saying they don't kill gays because of the music and the music was anti-gay, why they go and kill people because of the music?
No, music is like alcohol.
Right.
Music influence, music don't cause. We do not say alcohol cause accidents. We say alcohol influence accidents, meaning if the person was not under the alcohol, music influence, music don't cause crime. I am not saying music causes crime.
Okay.
I am saying music influence, just like alcohol.
Okay. It's like some people say guns don't kill people, it's people kill people. Similar concept, right? And I say guns kill people. Some people say guns don't kill people kill people. And I say guns kill people.
Of course, guns kill people. If you have fewer guns, you will have fewer murders. It's just logical.
Okay. Yes, I would agree with that.
I am not an illogical person.
Only sometime.
I do not, for the life of me, I do not know why black people are okay with musicians promoting their demise. I remember when you have this rapper, I think his name is Savage 21. He has a song called My N-Word, My Chopper 8 N-Word.
Right.
Chopper is a their way of saying a gun.
Right.
My chopper ate N-words. And he went on in the song to say, my chopper is like the KKK, it ate N-words. And black people hear music like this and don't think it is weird.
So, Carla, before you mention the fact that fentanyl has a market, and that's why drives supply of fentanyl, right? Apparently, this music has a market. It's not only. It's, by the way, Caucasians buy the music as well as black people do.
I agree.
Okay.
But I tell you, if one of these musicians say my chopper ate white people, and they must be the same words that they direct towards killing black people. I remember in the 90s when Michael Jackson had a song called, all I really want to say, they don't really care about us. And in one of the lines, he said, shoot me, and then he said, Jew me. And the Jewish community got so outraged, he had to change the line in that song.
Right. Well, some people have influence, right? Some people have influence, and they'll have things change because they have influence.
But yes, but there was an outrage in the Jewish community and towards that.
The Jewish community get outraged about a ton of things, and when they get outraged, things get changed. That's how life works.
Exactly. The violence.
But are you saying the music causes violence? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't. I said the music.
So why are you beating the music and not beating other things like education, or beat other things like access to capital, or beat other things that may affect the black community? Why is it you're beating the music as much and giving it so much airtime versus what I think is more core and more root cause for these issues that we have? Because you just said education. You don't think education and poverty are main reasons why we have this, and you say music isn't. So what is it? If it's not education, if it's not music, if it's not poverty, what is it?
You know why I go hard on the music, just like corporate America goes hard on the music. When corporate America wants to promote something, they do not go to the scientists or the doctors or whatever. They go and get the most popular musician to promote their product because they know the influence that these musicians have. Nobody knows of the influence in corporate America. The smartest people in the world know who are the influence. They know who can get people to do things. This is the reason why they go to the musicians to promote their products.
Okay. So you're saying, but you're still not telling me. So does the music creates an environment which is more violent and causes murders and causes injuries?
The music don't cause murders or injuries. The music influence.
But if it influences it puts us in that direction, then doesn't it? If you influence me to do something and I do it, aren't you part of the reason?
Yes, but I want to be specific on what I am driving at.
So the caller, let's sum this up by saying this. What do you think are the main reasons why we have a situation where, if we go back to the whole topic, which is mainly this, the culture is good and the culture is bad, right? I outlined the good things about the culture and the bad things about the culture. We now got to the point where we're talking about specifically the murders of people who are like us. And the question is, what drives the propensity for murder, especially in the Caribbean and Latin America? You're saying it's not poverty or education. I'm saying there are no-brainers in that causes this. I say there are no-brainers. You look at those countries, and Trinidad, Jamaica, Honduras, Ecuador, all those countries that we just mentioned, St. Vincent, for Christ's sake, St. Lucia, which I was very shocked to see that in the stats. And we're saying poverty and lack of education are not some of the primary reasons, really?
I have, for example, do you know that with all the problems in Haiti, Haiti is poorer than all the countries that you listed. Haiti's murder rate is relatively low. Many people don't know this. Haiti's murder rate is relatively low. If you look at the data, when I look at the data, Haiti was like 20 of the most murderous country in the world, and that is relatively low with all the problems they're experiencing.
So what caused the murder rate in
one.
Jamaica to be maybe the highest in the world? What's Jamaica's cause? What's the primary
Our
reasons?
culture,
Primary reasons. But doesn't a lot of
culture.
these things inform the culture? Doesn't it? Well, like a parental household, doesn't all these other factors we talked about inform the culture, which then create some of these problems? Isn't why they say the culture is good and the culture is bad? Because the Jamaica culture is pervasive, it's global. It's probably one of the most renowned country on earth with the size of the population. Per capita, it may be the most known country in the world, period, including the United States, for Christ's sake.
Jamaica's culture is very interesting, is that people globally misconstrue Rastafarian culture for Jamaican culture.
Okay.
They're not the same. They're not the same.
It's part of it's some aspect of Jamaica culture. It's some aspect of it.
Yeah,
Because the Rastafarian didn't it originate in Jamaica? I know it all come. Yeah.
But Jamaican people on a whole have shown Rastafarianism on a whole.
Well, they used to shun it. They used to shun it. They don't shun it anymore, as you were saying. They used to shun it.
So when you say Jamaican culture is pervasive, I agree with you, but it's not the culture that is practiced locally. It's not the same.
No, because you got to be very careful when you say that, because there are aspects of the culture is not just about Rastafarian. The culture is not any one thing. It's a bunch of different things, right? Reggae music, even reggae music in itself, have different elements to it, whether it's dancehall or old reggae or new, whatever it is, there are different aspects to it, right? The holistic culture of Jamaica, confident, aggressive, music, entertainment, sports, whatever those things entail that informs the culture is global in nature nowadays. I was in St. Louis the other day at this football match, and we have all these dreads, and I was there with my partner in the restaurant, and we're talking about this, which is how you get the dreads. Why do you try to get dreads? And we had a bet, because she thought that because the person knew about Jamaica and XYZ, and I'm like, no, the culture is now so ingrained now, they don't necessarily equate dreads with Jamaica anymore. They may know about Bob Marley, but they're not thinking about I'm getting dreads because of Bob Marley with Jamaica. They're getting dreads because, you know what? It's easy to maintain. And I like it. I
agree in certain aspects. If you list 10 things that make Jamaica, 10 positive things about Jamaican culture that is pervasive worldwide, I can guarantee you more than 5 goes back to Rastafarianism. More than 5. More than half.
I don't agree with that, but it's your view. So
because I live in Jamaica and I work in the tourist area, so I go in between cultures a lot when I used to live there and since I moved overseas. And it is something that because, for example, you will have a song that is popular worldwide and it is not popular in Jamaica. And you find that in Jamaica, the song is not talking about killing someone, or scamming, or very extremely sexually pervasive. It will not hit. But you have a different song that will hit overseas, and the musicians can tell you it out of their own mouth. That's what they sing overseas is different from what they sing in Jamaica because the people are different things.
Yeah.
Positive music is not in Jamaica at the moment. If you're not singing about something crazy and doing something crazy, you will not get any play.
All right. So, caller, summarize your call in the next 1 minute because I just got another call which I had to click out of. So, summarize your call. You got much more than 5 minutes. We agreed on 5. You got about 20. So, summarize your call.
My summary is that conversations like this and conversations like what you're having now will change the culture. So it's a positive. You will change the culture. So
I'm not going to change it. We all are trying to influence the culture, but we ain't going to change it. The people have to change, right?
You will be surprised because one of my biggest influence in life was a radio talk show host. He died a few years ago, but he lives on with me to today. You don't know who you're going to influence.
Right.
You don't know. So keep up the good work.
All right. Appreciate the call, caller.
All right. Thank you.
Right. So for those in the chat, the caller and I were competing. If somebody makes a point, I have to challenge the veracity or the logic of what they're saying, right? Because we gotta get on the same page. Cruz Liverpool is saying, so Cruz, if you support Liverpool, you guys won today and won easily. You're looking good, both for the Premier League and for the Champions League. He said, Crank, we asked it. History shows that education wasn't dominant back then and we had less violence. So we did talk about this, Cruz, that there are a combination of factors that inform violence, right? And it's a detriment to our people. So education to me is one. And poverty and education are also linked. People don't realize how linked poverty and education are. Because if you're extremely well educated, somehow you're going to figure out a way to get yourself out of poverty, right? Now, the question one is going to say, well, what level of poverty are we talking about? And a lot of times in Jamaica, when you were poor back in the 60s and even early 70s and even mid 70s, the availability of guns weren't there. The aggressive nature of the population wasn't as extreme as it is today. You didn't have the American influence, where greed is now a propensity of greed in the society, because you know what? People live more like a family. You could go someplace with your doors open. So there are influences around us, coupled with your own individual situation, which drives behaviors, right? Which drives behaviors. And that's part of the challenge you run into, which is saying education is not a contributor. Education is about decision making, Are you going to make good decisions? I'll give you an example. If you have a confrontation or a conflict, how do I resolve that conflict? Do I resolve it by violent means or do I talk it out? Good evening, DJ Fatal. How are you doing?
Yeah, Cranky, big up yourself, Good day, man.
Good evening. What do you have to say about this topic? About the benefits and detriments of our culture and the impact on our society of such culture?
All right. More if really kind of stick nearly to our culture, but it kind of hard not to, because like I said, it's not just affecting just one particular area in terms of the Caribbean. It's not just Jamaica individually. This is specific to. If you, like you say, you look along the lines, a lot of Caribbean countries, especially English speaking, have the same problem unfolding.
And by the DJ Fatal, 1 second. And by the way, people, if you go back over time with like Trinidad and some of those countries, it was similar to Jamaica back in the 60s and 70s. Just coming into colonialism, just getting their independence. Trinidad had oil, they didn't export a lot of people. They didn't have this crime wave that they have now. So the journey is very similar for all these people. And I'm telling you, the availability of guns and the lack of family structure and the poverty situation drives a lot of it. Go ahead, DJ Fatal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just to kind of add to that list you put up.
Yeah.
You see, one of the most, like, for me, mind-blowing country, Belize. If anybody want to look at the population of Belize, 500,000 are the people that live in Belize. By the way, people, Belize country bigger than Jamaica. Bigger than Jamaica in terms of square footage. It's a bigger country than Jamaica with less than 1 million people. And they are on that. So that alone tells you how this can become a spiraling problem. So when I use that to say is, you realize that people can be controlled. And we will say, well, what do you mean by people can be controlled? What control people? Influence. And if you keep on dig deep, what causes influence, other people? Power. Basically, it's going down to up to the point of power. So the people, when we say power, the people who have control over power is the people who control your resources, the things that you watch, and the things that and control what you have to do. So a lot of that plays into it. And also, like you said, the most primary things that can break the chain are, like you said, can change the structure or refine the structure. In my mind, or my philosophy, my ideology is family, like you said, the culture, the community, and spiritual, finding that spiritualness within oneself. Now, I do believe, like you, that the music itself not necessarily is a point or of leading people to create commit violent act or influence violence in a majority of case. It's more minor. It probably give it a boost, but it's not even that. I wouldn't say it's a big influence. I think people like kind of prey too much on that and trying to find something to blame and realizing, like you said, to look at the higher structure or the higher problems that involve. In our society, in the Western, well, if we look at the Western hemisphere, because that's where we live in, education is a big problem to people not able to reason, think logical, and relate to violence. If people want to deny that, it's because themselves not educated. I'm telling you, sometimes people who are not that educated, and when I say educated, I'm going beyond high school level. I'm talking about really and truly for real, tertiary level. When you're not educated, it limits your ability sometimes, not all the time, because you have some people that can be rational, humble, and can really hold composure.
But they're educated. If you're saying they so we can't conflate being, say, college educated or high school educated, because some people are self-learners, right? Yeah. Education is how well you've informed yourself, right? It's not necessarily means that you have to have some accreditation to say you're educated. So I want to be careful 100%. About that. But a lot of people haven't spent time educating themselves or going through formal learning, and it's reflected in their behavior. So go ahead.
Well, all right. Like you mentioned, for example, finding oneself, when we mentioned earlier about how even the spiritualness, for example, if we even delve into the Rastafarian group, because they are a part of the Jamaican society, most of the ones them that basically transcended from being a local youth, whatever, and when they say they find themselves and they go into that, I'm talking about go deep down into that, then most likely they are more enough peaceful and a spiritual part, and then most likely kind of hold a better reasoning, then talk to you with more respect rather than disrespect. You know what I mean? So, right. Like I said, they educate themselves. They try to find more a peace within themselves. They try to basically reason with more respect at most, and carry themselves better in a society. I'm not saying that. Sometimes people will say, "Well, one Rastaman a bad man." It's not. It doesn't broad brush everybody. You understand? Because it's not going to be a perfect era. It will be some gray areas. But what, like you said, education is not necessarily something up there. Oh, you just have to find it in a book. You know what I mean? Some of the most educated people, for example, a farmer, can tell you every herb or medicinal bush that there is to help heal the body. Right. And you will go to the most high university, become a doctor. You don't even know that these are the ones that make certain pills that you're basically prescribing to patients. So it goes on every level. The thing is, like you said, because our society has fallen into this trap. Cranky, just as a side note, the matrix is real. Yeah, if people understand that metaphor in terms of saying how the movie kind of say, listen, how people trapped in not realizing that the real world is not real into an aspect, and if you roll back and don't run down the rat race, for example, meaning the financial grip, you can realize it. People now, for example, forget how to live off the land, or you can't survive without, the day-to-day function in the society. So the people in Jamaica, for example, if you live in a country, you never hear somebody starve today, because they can either get fruits, vegetables, wherever from, even Uncle Tom, John, or they can plant it themselves.
Right.
No, it might be a different thing when you live in the city. You understand? You have to find the bread. You have to go to the work. So you depend on that robust metropolitan area.
So here's a question I have for people, because I've always thought about this. I never asked that question. So if I'm in the town, there's no job, there are no resources, and I have access to go to the country to live where I can get food, why do I still stay in the town?
Because it's that crazy fear factor in that cranky. Like how you say live in New York. Yeah. Some people, for example, live at Bronx, and they might tell us, say, yo, man, I never go to Brooklyn. I'm never going to say that day of my life. I said, brother, nothing wrong with them to say, or the same vice versa. Me hear people talk like that, and I say to myself, say, we them believe so bad about the area. You understand? Like
Right.
we have these stigmas are the same thing we create for certain society, certain areas in our societies, Man tell you say, yo, if you go cross the bridge, they will go kill you. You understand? Like we don't break certain barriers. You know, only think over time when after the 80s, violence and crime did rampant, and then every era becomes so tribalistic, and if I look at turf, a green right around the street is a orange, and it's like I think what break that barrier over time is when Jamaicans come abroad. You come abroad and guess what? Somebody will go back home and say, yo, you can't carry this long for John Town for me. You know what I mean? So people now start to cross back the borders, them and create that relationship again, where people start realizing, well, it's not so bad. You understand? Because me remember my cousins, them.
But here, DJ, here's a question for you. Isn't that about education though? People are saying you can't cross this line. Why? Why can't I cross a line? So I live in Tivoli, I'm trying to go to another section of town or wherever I'm living, where you have these borders, these demarcation. Why can't I cross a line? This is not like some environment where, you know what? We have these territories that we carve out because we conduct certain illegal activities in those territories. These are just fictitious borders people create for what reason? I never understood those logic. Isn't that like an education and thought process and deductive reasoning and trying to figure out what's the why can't this person cross this line and do XYZ?
So it is a mixture of that, and I think it also have to do with that mentality from slave ship, and even with the up to date of people have this fear. I think fear is a big problem. You mentioned it even with the religion broad brush, meaning say people will say, yo, no, you will get lightning strike, taught them where there, whatever. You understand? Like, for example, if you're little, me and you probably can relate. Hey, reggae music was like blasphemy one time.
Yes, it was. It was the worst thing ever.
Devil music, them not listen to them something. Even when the music was conscious. So even when me hear some a while ago, I don't know my name, so forgive me. But me hear a mention say, yo, about the music, and I'm saying, even the good music, what we could have said, yo, was good. The music never talk about no crime, no hate, and no this, and people have burn it out. So it's a big fear. People we don't like something when things are changing. We create a problem about it. I will start say something negative about it, just to stick to what we know. And like you said, it go back to education. That's what I said. It is a mixture of some of that, the fear. And I think that's also what hold back a lot of us, tying into what you're talking about, why we are not achieving certain level as a community, as a group, as a family. We're not breaking and changing these barriers because we live in the fear. We don't want to go to challenge yourself or say, yo, so me have the skill set to become an entrepreneur. I believe so we can do this. We're not challenging ourselves, or we're limiting ourselves. And it's the same mindset even in the Christian community, because that's one of the biggest community in Jamaica. We hold back ourselves with certain degree of thinking that, the we and part, like you say, people are getting 10 and 20% tired. Imagine if them invest that 10 and 20% for them family, them kids, and say, yo, say when the kids them grow up, this never used to send them go to college, how much that growing dividend. I'm just saying, people are limit themselves and them just go this tunnel vision way. It's a very broad brush topic I deal with for really not, but it's very important and vital, especially for the Caribbean and specifically even Jamaica, because we have the highest crime rate. No, what in a gist of things, because a lot of people probably kind of all over the place with the reasoning, but in a gist of things, what I do believe, like what you mentioned, I think, for example, communities need to be more involved in day-to-day society in terms of saying we need to have more organized structure in our community. People are too guarded self. Say to me, this capitalist also is a big havoc to destroy in our
you live in America, don't you?
Yeah, man.
So how you going to sound like you're adverse to capitalism?
You know what I say with it? It creates too much selfish mind.
It's a selfish. Yeah, it's selfish. It's greed. It's selfish. But if saying greed is good,
I understand. But say, Cranky, you mentioned about the rich billionaires. Them. You want to know what all of them have in common? I mean, I say this with like me, I talk precisely. But my thought thinking is that for one to become like that, you have to be ruthless, selfish, and you have to do basically some very undermining things that people in a general
do you have to do
society,
undermining things, or because it's not? I mean, LeBron James don't do undermining things to become a billionaire, right? So you just mentioned billionaire. I just put up the list, people. I'm just showing you some people on the list. Now I did have. Sorry, 1 second. I did have Musk as 3 something because this list by Forbes is a little bit dated. It's for 2024. But I said since Trump become president, I think Musk numbers are probably going up by 60, 70 billion. So go ahead, DJ Faith. I'm just putting up the list here of the sort of richest people. There are a lot of billionaires in the world. Larry Ellison from Oracle, people, Buffett. The only old billionaire here in the first probably 10 is Buffett, actually. Bloomberg, Gates, they're all pretty new. Bloomberg opened this terminal. Gates was Microsoft. I call from Microsoft and Apple new money in a sense since the 80s. Most of these people here in the top 10 are new money. But go ahead. And different kind of rich. So we only got greedy over time, by the way.
Yeah, which is true. But me talk about the elite of the elite. Me even not talk about the 1 million, 2 billion, billions, I should say. I'm talking the elites of the elites. Them. If you notice, like you said, for example, they are not viewed in the entertainment world, with the exception of probably Elon Musk in terms of a lot of everybody could say them probably know that man.
But in entertainment, he's known to social media, but he's not entertainer.
I was just saying in general as he's a popular known name. But I'm saying at the end of the day, if you dig deep into their biography, there is a lot of things that probably people wouldn't be too comfortable.
Yeah, if you go back to some of the older people like the Roosevelts of the world and the Rockefellers of the world, and the Vanderbilts of the world, you may have some questions about the origins of their wealth. But the Musk of the world and the Zuckerbergs and all these people, and Bezos, they're new money. And they have much more than the old or correct way of building wealth, right? The social media wealth, which is the Google money, and all those individuals. If I go back up to the top, people look at the top 10. So Elon Musk is new money. Bezos is new money. Zuckerberg, those are the 3. They're new money. Ellison from Oracle, fairly new money. Buffett is the only regular investor here, finance. The other 4 are mainly through technology, right? Or software or social media. So go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is with Jamaica, kind of go back to Jamaica. I think Jamaica, we have to, the family, like you said, the family structure need to be more strong and organized. We need both parents in the household, and we need the family. You see, like for example, the Chinese, them, the Asians, them, when you mentioned, right. If you notice them, their grandparents or whatever, they live with them. They live in their household.
So grandparents and parents. It's a family structure.
It's a family structure.
It's a family structure.
So it's always together. So they do things together. Yep. A lot of us, I'm not saying that, a lot of us sometimes you have to go on your own and try to get everybody. You can't get everybody up, so the separation starts somewhere. But I'm just saying, getting the family structure in together is very important, play a vital role. You understand? Because at the end of the day, like I say, if mom, dad is around and create more structure, teaching, and even pushing your kids into certain things, don't limit them in terms of saying their mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, investing mindset, financial mindset, understanding how money works. You know what I mean? I think these are the most important things we can teach our kids basically going forward to break some of these impoverished cycle with the violence and everything. Like even some of these youths, with the scamming thing and everything, teach the youth and say, listen, if you're this good with computer, do this, do that. You understand? Like create something else with a wealth. Learn some forex, learn some trading, but our crypto go crazy right now. People need to start understand. Say, listen, there is a lot of ways out there where our people are being falling behind, not understanding. Say, listen, the wealth is being built around us, and we are the last one to see it. A lot of Jamaicans, for example, one thing I could say, like the older school people, them have land. Utilize the lands, hold on to your lands. Them are the real value. You understand? create well these way because you can pass these down and it can become something. It's gonna be something. The land always needed. You know, we like I said, we need to invest more. We need to learn more in our community. We need more workshops and them things they start to be involved in the Jamaican sphere. I think art is one of the best thing ever come out of Jamaica in terms of providing for youth skills because it helps a lot of the Jamaicans that go to the other small islands. You know, it's because of the skills they have, and to say that's what basically help a lot of them today. Why Jamaica? Why we have as probably a Caribbean country, we probably have the most restaurants in America as far as Caribbean countries. It's because that natural skill set. A lot of people just could have cook. You have to cook because mommy and daddy never did the RM teacher. And you just become a good chef, you come a friend, you know, have no other skill set. You just say you go cook, everybody like your food, you open your restaurants. So I'm saying, you know, rely on the skill set you have and just keep on, you know, but we have to help each other.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with that concept, but I think we also have to learn new skill sets, right? We sometimes are relying upon tried and tested, but it may not be the skill set which is going to maximize your potential. We sometimes have hidden skill set and qualities, but we haven't explored them because either we're afraid or we have made an attempt to do so. And we also got to think about what is in today. Technology is the future. How do I get myself educated and informed about technology? And I can actually use that skill set that I learned to generate income for me and my family. We can't avoid it, right? If you go to India, for example, it's pervasive. Right, we're trying to not get involved in the math and the sciences, which is where the world is going towards. We have to get our kids involved. We have to get involved in their education. We have to help them, and also we have to work with our environment we're in, whether it's politician or otherwise, to make sure we have good teachers and good schools and create an environment for them to learn and develop. And we have to put pressure on them to them understand that the world is not fair, that the world is challenging, and that for them to be successful, they have to be better than their peers, period.
100%. And you know, to kind of add to what you're saying, for example, let's look at the continent Africa. Africa have all the resources of the world. Actually, any country that controls Africa or runs Africa, you control, which is what US actually do. At the end of the day, the point, what I'm saying, Africa have so much resources. Majority, they have a young booming of kids coming up, so it's gonna change eventually. What I'm saying, a big problem is that Africa kids don't have the access to good education in all level.
Right.
You understand? And I'm saying not necessarily the hardship between how you live and to pay for school. It kind of difficult, so a lot of people don't get to manifest their true potentials where they would want to go, especially like you mentioned, technology, all this new way of evolve with technology, or even the AI way, basically, because a lot of the resources are being harnessed by other companies or other countries, and Africa don't have the resources to create these technologies to harness their own resources. You understand? So they basically are dying.
No, DJ. Africa's problem is this: Africa needs to be like the European Union. Break down those darn barriers. Create one economy. You have all the natural resources and harness those resources, which the West need, and charge more for those resources and build the infrastructure. This concept of all these languages and differences and wars and nonsense that kills the continent, which have some, as you're saying, some of the most natural resources reside there and is not being utilized. The corruption there, the lack of education needs to be. Break down those barriers. Get rid of all these fictitious barriers that have been created. Break them down. The European Union create one economy because they want to compete with the US because they know they can compete individually. Why can't Africa do that and change the dynamics of that environment? But I have to leave you, DJ, because I'm getting another call. I'm going to have to leave you.
Yeah, man. But I
appreciate the call.
Just to end off, big up yourself, you know?
Yeah, man. Good night. Hello? Uh-oh. Both parties hang up. Let me call back. Both parties hang up simultaneously. I hope I'm calling back the right number. It may not be the right number. I may be calling by faith. Hello? Good night. Oh, I think I called the wrong number. Sorry. Let me just... I apologize.
All right.
Good night. Good night. Hello. There's a loud noise in the back. Loud noise in the background. Who am I speaking to?
This is Determined. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Determined. I can hear you. It's not the best line, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm driving. I don't know. I could call you back because.
No, you might as well call him. I'm soon close it down because I've been here 2 hours already. So I'm past my time. I'm getting these funny looks at home just saying your time is up. You've been on here for 2 hours. It's Thanksgiving coming up. Let's get a life. So
that is true.
Yeah. So what do you want to say?
Just contribute my 2 cents to this conversation, and thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for the show.
Not a problem.
So it's not cranky, and everything for me starts with education, but it's not only education. Education also comes with good governance, because some of our most educated people are involved in running Jamaica as our politicians, right?
Yep.
But if we don't have good governance and good leadership, the education, it doesn't make sense. If you look at most of our teachers, we're nurses, all of them end up in the United States, and you ask yourself why? It's because we don't have good governance. So all of these things intertwine with each other. So until we get serious as a people, get serious as a culture, just like you have Singapore, that they got serious, within 5 years, Singapore has changed. Because they took the no-nonsense role. And I think once we start taking that no-nonsense role and get serious, just like our football team gets serious, a lot of things will change. Not only, and it takes one country, actually. Just one country to lead the way. And my daughter lives in Africa. I have a house in Africa, Liberia. And you don't have, it's no country that's there on the continent of Africa or the diaspora of Africa, of the diaspora of Jamaica, of, the Caribbean. There is no countries that's there that I can say is somewhat of a safe haven. There's no black countries that's there that's leading the forefront. And all it takes is one country to develop a good governance system, make it attractive, and you'll see the whole shift. But we don't have that. And all of this is by design.
Well, we don't really have any black country which can say is being run in a manner where when you look in the direction of travel and their future, it's extremely bright. I don't know of such a country. Now, people may say Barbados, for example, given their leader and what she represents. But if I look across the entire globe, and even within countries where we're not the majority, I can't say I look at leadership and say this leadership is exemplary and it's going to get us to a good place, a good destination. People always bring up Singapore being analogous to Jamaica in the concept of when they get their independence and where they are versus Jamaica. But they also didn't have some of the same challenges that Jamaica have, right? But it's not a bad analogy to say, why can some do it and we can't? Is it the concept of slavery and colonialism and what we experience? How does that bring us to where we are? Is proximity to America a positive or a negative holistically? How does that work, for example? Given the benefits we derive from the country, but also the detriments we get from it, right? That are a byproduct of us being almost neighbor to the US. So there's a lot to decipher. There's a lot to digest. And the question for all of us is, what can each of us do to make us as a people better?
I think in every 10 years is a shift. Every 10 years, you have a more educated generation, technology change, everything changed. When it comes to a country like the United States, if you look at the way that it's going, I think the family setting doesn't exist per se here, especially in our culture, right? Because when you look at it as far as in our culture, you look at, it's always a single parent home. Parents are never there, they're always working. So there's no family setting. I think the new generations that's coming up, they're a lot smarter when it comes to, you understand the psyche of, the brain, and as far as family. Because if you look at, for instance, growing up in Jamaica, right? my parents, they worked hard, and that was it, right? For them, they never, it's like, okay, just get an education. That's all I want from you.
Right.
They never said, like, for instance, if I tell my dad I want to be a musician, look at me like, are you serious? No, that's not going to work, right? And he didn't explain to me as far as this and that and break it down. Like, I think these kids that's these generation, you have more of it's more teachable for them to understand. The reason being, like, you're a lawyer and the income of a lawyer and the courses of a lawyer, and now at a younger age you're able to look at your child and can say, okay, I see my kid, he's like, when it comes to the remote or when it comes to the TV, he's always fascinated about, how it's working, or computers. You can tell, you can look at your child and basically, look at him and make a decision in which way he's going to go based on his interests.
Right.
And these things are very important, right? Once we can put it all together and create a positive family structure, the neighborhood will change. The ones that's around us will change. But this is the key thing to it. I mean, the family structure is key, along with education is key. But
no, I think all those are factors which needs to be addressed, right? There's a multitude of things which our community needs to address to get us to a better place. This is not to say there are people in our community that are not doing well. A lot of them are doing well, and that number increases every day. But the large majority, to me, is being left behind. And the question that arises is, how do we change that direction and get us to a better place? And I think each of us can contribute to that conversation, and can, in our own individual self, if we do the right thing, morally, some people want to use spiritually, financially, economically, we support each other. I'm of the philosophy nowadays that we can be separate and successful. People got the concept of separate and equal. We can create our own economy and be successful versus waiting for others to help us achieve success.
Well, what is successful? What does success look like, Frankie? What do you define success as?
To me, success is basic, actually. I can provide the fundamental resource of my family: healthcare, food on the table, clothing, housing. I can help my family members. To me, that's success in a sense. I don't have to be Bill Gates. I don't have to be Musk. I don't have to be any one of those billionaires. I don't have to be LeBron James, right? If I can make a very good living and I keep advancing as a person, I keep developing, I keep growing, I keep educating myself, I keep expanding my horizon, that's a progress towards success. When I came to this country, for example, I remember coming here, and I can still remember looking down on the place, looked really, really cold. And when I got to the apartment we lived in, I was like, is this it? Are you out of your mind? I came from Jamaica. I had a nice setup, right? I lived in a nice house, nice setup. And I come here and I have to start all over. And I work full-time. I went to school full-time. But I always see a pie at the end of the rainbow, right? I always see something to achieve. I felt that to be much more rewarding than if I was born rich, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And I deem success to be, you know what? I can provide for my family and not only my siblings, but others within my family. I can help myself. I am not in want. I'm not rich. I'm far from being rich, but I don't feel like I'm struggling financially. That to me is success. Now you can go further in your life if you so choose. Some people like to think that success is being a multimillionaire. That may not necessarily, you may have a lot of money in life, but you're still very unhappy. Success is a combination of I have financial resources to satisfy my financial needs, coupled with I'm happy as a person in terms of my life and my family and my situation. Because sometimes people are rich and they're extremely unhappy. And to me, that may not be the totality of success that one's looking for.
And I agree with you. I mean, everybody have their different idea of success.
True.
Right?
But being poor is not successful. Mm-hmm. Let me just say that. Being poor is not successful. In my boat anyway. Some people in Africa, they're happy as a lark. Okay, they don't know what it would be any other way and they look happy. But to me, if you can't provide for yourself financially, that's, especially in a place like the US, it's difficult. Mm-hmm. It's difficult.
Yeah, I agree to in some sense. success for me, this is not my country. I came here to make a living, came here to get educated, came here, also got an opportunity to start my business, right? So when Donald Trump was about to be president, his slogan was "Make America Great Again." It's not my country. This is not my fight. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm not mad at whatever rules and laws he come to govern and put in place. How can I be mad at him? Right? This is his fight. This is his idea.
Are you a citizen?
Yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen.
Well, then it's your country.
No,
Or is your adopted country? It's your adopted country. Then why are you a citizen?
This is my adopted country.
Yeah. And if you intend to live here for the rest of your life, it's your country now.
No, I don't intend to live here for the rest of my life.
Okay.
No. My ideal of life, this is not this country. Is it brings out a side of you that is not a humanistic side. Is very it's very animalistic, right? And I understand it because this country it's a capitalist country. This country is all you see is dollars, is money. So I mean, if you decide to come to this country, I would suggest everyone should do the research before you decide to run to the United States. If you're looking for a place to get rich or a place to make some money, this is the perfect country to come to. If you're looking for mental health, or you're looking for a place that deals with, as far as provides great hospitals and just a human, how do you say it? Like to deal with a human, just deal with you as a human being. Canada, Sweden, these places are the place to go, right?
Right.
So now when I look at,
but you know that a lot of people in I'm going to use England for example, where doctors make not a lot of money, they come to the US. So here's an example. Someone may come here and say, you know what, I don't want to live here permanently, but I can make enough in 5 years. I can make 20 years someplace else. So it's a means to an end.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. You come here, and when you come to this, anywhere you go, it's a sacrifice. But when you come to the United States, it breaks down every barrier, right? It breaks down the barrier of family. It breaks down the barrier of the connection. It breaks down everything just for that sacrifice, which is money, right? Because how the system is set up is, you get your education, find the best job, or start a business, and either or you still got to sacrifice and break down the human side of you until you get to a certain level in your life and you're like, okay, now it's time to live life. By then, to me, it's too late.
But what someone asked you the question, since you asked me the question, what success look like? What does living life look like? Because some people will say, do I want to live in what I'm going to call, for lack of a better word, mediocrity for all my life? I want to maximize my potential and live a certain lifestyle where I have choices, I'm not restricted, and money provide me the resources to allow me to live that way. What do you say to that?
For me, living life is just the simplicity of it, life itself, right? I'm from a country where it's beautiful from one end to the next, right? And the only reason why I'm here is because of that almighty dollar, right? There's nothing else that's keeping me in this country, to be honest. So success for me is having your own land, living in unison with your community. Is not necessarily the amount of money that I can make. It's just being able to provide for myself, my community, and my family.
But isn't that money? But if you can provide, you got to think about what provide means. It means you're not struggling. That means, and is that buying? If you think about it from the context of this, is that just barely surviving, or is that I have extra disposable income to, you know what, buy some things that I like, but they're wants, not needs.
You said it the right way.
Right?
Wants, not needs.
Right.
Yeah.
Because some people wants are important to them, but for most people, they just want what they need to survive and to live an okay life.
That's it. Even if you had you have to bring in an income. Like as I said, if my parents knew and parents knew what I know now, right? This, as far as the setting for us to live that okay life, it would have been different, right? It's just is in my generation that I'm able to now say, hey, mom, listen, or dad, make sure that when you have a proper setting when it comes to life insurance. Pay attention to the equity in your house, and also your 401k. Make sure all that is set. Your will is done. Everything is well put together, because all of that goes down to the next generation, and then you pass it down to the next generation, right? And instead of I'm here trying to make sure my business is successful. When you have a generation that passed down wealth to the next generation, you have a choice if you want to compete 100% in this rat race, or you only want to do 50% in this rat race and live that comfortable life that you want.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we just never got that opportunity to be educated enough to see what that looked like. But now this generation can make a difference, and it shouldn't be any more excuse, because everything is practically in your hands.
Well, I'm gonna qualify that by saying some in this generation, because a lot have been left behind, and they're in this malaise of, you know what, they're living hand to mouth, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't have a chance to create generational wealth. If you look at the difference between the average wealth of a white person and that of a black person, you'd be amazed. So a lot of immigrants who come here do much better than I'm going to use like a better word, the indigenous population per se. They're not really indigenous, but the ones who have been here over time, because of how the objective of coming here, as you're saying, is sort of one-dimensional, right? I come here to be successful. I'm going to make certain sacrifices that others may not make. I'm going to do certain jobs that others may not do, because I have a one-track mind. I have one objective. I'm going to achieve that objective. If you're indigenous, and it's no different from people like Indians go to Jamaica, or Asian go to Jamaica, or blacks come to this country from the Caribbean or from Africa, it's the same concept. I think if you look at most of these countries, immigrants do better in general than those who are indigenous to that location, because of the drivers that they have and what they're trying to achieve. So I'm gonna cut it off. I'm gonna cut you off the other side. I'm gonna have to close down because it's late.
All right, 1 second.
Yeah.
1 second, and then I'll finish with this cranky. All right. So you're right about that. But as I said, my focus is Jamaica. Your focus is obviously Jamaica. I don't know if you want to go back to live, but it's obviously your focus is there based on what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the football. At some point, we're going to have to make the diaspora Jamaicans are going to have to make a conscious effort of coming together to change that structure that's there. Basically, because we have a voice that's here, and most of us here are doing pretty well, right? Based on the remittance that we send home, right? So whenever you go back home, it's like a time warp. Jamaica, believe it or not, is probably 10 years behind, right? Not only just with technology, I'm not saying that's everywhere, but I'm talking about the majority of the island. Not only with as far as technology, but also education and the way that we do things, the process and the system is not there, right? You always look at it. You have a Jamaican that come here and he's able to be and do whatever he wants to do as far as being successful, right? But why can't we do that back home? It comes a point now, just like what you're doing, Cranky. You see certain things that's going on in the football organization, and you're speaking up against it. and you have followers that's following your lead and saying enough is enough. And this is what we should do: stand together, create that voice of reasoning, because a lot of us want to go back home. A lot of us want to invest, but the leaders that's there, they're not making that opportunity for us to come home and invest.
Determined. I'm going to stop there, and I appreciate the comments. Okay. All right. Have a wonderful night.
No problem.
Thank you, sir. Be good. All right. So let me close up by saying a couple of things as we go about moving forward. Quickly, I'm going to make some comments. And to close down the show, I'll say this. In terms of moving forward, I'll mention a number of things that we got to consider as a people. And this is not just for Jamaicans or Caribbean in general. I'm not taking any more calls. I apologize. I'm not taking any more calls. I have to close down. To balance the blessing and overcome the curses, we need to take deliberate steps. Celebrate Black scientists, entrepreneurs, and educators with the same energy we celebrate. I just say I'm not taking any more calls. Invest in education. Equip young people with resources and mentorship. I'm not even sure who's calling me. Equip young people with resources and mentorship to explore diverse opportunities beyond sports and entertainment. Challenge harmful narratives. Push back against stereotypes that glorify violence. Struggle or limit the definition of success. Andre, you have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes, Andre. You call late, and I gotta go.
Yeah, I know I call it. But how are you doing? You doing good?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, I see your regular guest canceled on you today.
Yes, my guest canceled. My guest postponed me. My guest reached out to me 10 minutes before showtime, but luckily I had made contingencies because I was going to wait that long. My guest didn't get back to me until 10 minutes before showtime when I already moved on. So yeah.
You're a bit off. Let me see if I can use this time here wisely. I think this is a big topic you took on.
This is just an introduction for the topic. I had to come up with a topic, so I came up with this one because I was talking to Maverick today about the sort of cause of whether music or not is one of the causes of crime. And I said, you know what? Let me just do a show on this since my guests canceled on me. I postponed. So yeah. It's a big topic to discuss, and it needs much more teeth to it. Don't disagree.
It needs much more teeth to it because I think. But at the end of the day, the contribution I want to add is, your caller said just now that his country is beautiful from end to end.
He's talking about pictorially. He's not talking about different aspects of the country. He's talking about pictorially.
Right.
Yeah.
So today you was on a show. And there was a conversation about something that I thought was quite simple to come to for the adults on the call to come to terms with.
Right.
And there were differences in opinion, right, regarding how a young man should respond to an authority figure in a football match. And and I found that to be quite interesting. And as you talk about culture and why the Caribbean is in the condition that it is, there's a lot of things that was discussed, education and qualification, and we kind of big on education. And I can tell you sometimes in the Caribbean, in Trinidad, I can speak for, people get sponsored to go and get qualification. There's a distinction between the two for me. They go to England or they come to America, sponsored by the government to get qualification, and they go back and can't find a job. Right, your last caller is in America because he said he wanted to make a living. Right, so people are leaving the Caribbean to go look for opportunities. Right, and my contribution is that the Caribbean lack opportunity, and in my opinion, the lack of opportunity is what leads to the crime and the situation that we have in the Caribbean with the high murder rate and everything else.
I think it's more complex than that. It's a big contributor, but it's more complex than that.
Yeah, I think it's the main contributor. There are other things because
one may say. So let me play devil's advocate. One may say the lack of education doesn't allow you to create industries, which then create economic opportunities. Right.
Well,
so if I don't have people, if I have brain drain, and not the people there to be creative in their thinking, to come up with industries, to think how to figure out how to create economic environment and opportunities, then I won't have those economic opportunities we're talking about to allow the youth to be employed And one may say, well, you don't have the family structure and the education. You don't have the resource to get the education. There's a lot of things that are intertwined, which we need to flush out and talk about because it's important. As I said before, this is a very topical topic tonight, whereas the more substantive discussion, which is, I go into each of those items, which I call root cause, whether it's education, family structure, the economy, leadership, which we hadn't talked about. There's a number of factors which one has to consider, and they all somehow are interrelated to get to the elixir or the solution to meaningfully address this problem. But brain drain is a big issue. You think about it. Most of the people who are educated come to the US from Jamaica or Trinidad or someplace else. It's a fact. And then we have a bunch of elitists there who don't have the country at heart or run these countries into the ground. That's what happens.
Well, and again, you use the word educated, and
educated is important because I don't know what else are we going to use. Education is important.
Well, education for me, if you are truly educated, you are able to utilize your education to make the lives of your people better, right?
No, that's being more moral. Because you're educated doesn't mean you can like people better. That's being more. You're morally conscious. Yeah, let's not confuse education with how I make decision that affects people's lives. We're conflating two things.
Hear me out.
Elon Musk is educated. He don't give a damn about anybody but himself.
This is my version of education. We have people running the countries and in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And there's a lack of opportunities for people on the island, for young people.
Right.
Right. And I'm saying that if you are educated, you would use that education to make the lives of these people better.
So what if I'm educated and I don't use it? Does that mean I'm not educated?
You're qualified.
No, I don't agree. I can't let you finish. I don't agree. Totally disagree. Totally disagree.
You can't disagree, and I don't make my point. I got to make my point.
But you can't go further with that point.
But hold on. My point is simply this: you have more information on a subject matter than most people will have, right? So if you have a degree in books, right, you would have more information on how books are made than the average person. But education allows you, right, to use that knowledge to improve the lives of people. That's my take on it. You could disagree with that if you want, right? And that's why we lack opportunities, because almost everything is done based on who you know, right? And that's why people are leaving the island. The same brain drain that you're talking about, right? People are leaving the island and they're coming outside.
Well, they're not leaving the island. They're leaving the island because they're looking for better opportunities.
Because in your example just now, you said you were living good. You had a nice setup in Jamaica. And you came to America and you get excited. You were going to school full time. You were working full time. And you got excited just because you saw opportunity at the end of the tunnel. Opportunity is what got you excited.
Right.
Not going to college, not working full time, but you realized that you could become something bigger than you were, right? You could attain something, and that's my point, right? Opportunity is lacking, and because we lack opportunity, that's the main cause, in my opinion, of crime on the islands. Why I keep going, because I've seen where people have gone into some of the gang-related communities in Trinidad in particular. And every community they go into, what are the young people saying? We lack opportunity. That's from them up. We lack opportunity. We have education. We went to school. We got our passes. And when we go to look for jobs because of where we live, the conversation shuts down. And I think when you do this again, I think you need to take a real dive into the effect that the lack of opportunity is having on the island.
No, look, I mean, we all agree that if you don't have opportunities, you're going to try to figure out where to get opportunities, right? And that will probably also be a contributor to crime. Okay, if you can't get it, you got to get the resource from someplace to enable you and your family to live. Now, some people take the lazy way out, and some people are going to do it the right way, the moral way, the more legal way. But anyway, we have to close the program down. I thank you for calling.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thanks. Have a good night.
Take care.
All right. Just a couple more things, people, before I go. I'll say this. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you being here. I didn't touch upon a couple of things, which is embrace faith with action. Even though people may think I'm anti-religion, I'm not anti-God. We got to build economic power, which is create and support pathways for Black-owned businesses and startups and have innovations. And people got to embrace what's challenging. Don't run from it. Technology, math, the sciences. We have to think about how we can support two-parent household. Doesn't mean you have to be married. Doesn't mean you have to live in the same house. But we need two people to support the kid and have them grow, not one person. We got to have better leadership in our community. Leadership is wanting. It's lacking. And we have to have leaders who believe in the people and the community, not just themselves and trying to gain notoriety and publicity and fame. We have to reduce access to guns, especially guns coming from the US. The Caribbean is killed by those guns, literally, figuratively, every single way. It's not about buying back guns. It's about how we prevent guns from getting to these environments. And it's not just the Caribbean, it's Latin America and it's South America. And last but not least, we have to hold each other accountable because we don't do a good job of doing that. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful night. I don't think I'm even going to go out with my music, even though it's set up that way. But I appreciate the people. And those who are coming in my background, the background is reflective of the topic. Good night, everyone.